Audiobook title: The Apprentice Mage, Mastering Magic Arrows to the Limit. The tale of an exiled noble student, striving without abandon to reach greatness. Author: Pemopemosan. Zephyr notes: Greetings, everyone. Zephyr here, presenting another intriguing light novel found on code.socitu.com. I stumbled upon this gem and found it captivating and enjoyable. Hope you all feel the same. Synopsis: Albert, having learned the basic magic skill of magic arrow at a young age, was expected to have a bright future. However, he couldn't grasp any other magic. His noble father, who valued appearances, exiled Albert as a failure. Albert spent 10 years in the given house, reading only magic arrow spellbooks. Those days gradually pushed his magic to its limits. When Laura lamented about not making it to the exam on time, Albert said to her, "I'll take you there with my magic arrow." How with a ranged attack magic of 50 meters. It's the tale of a man who believes his magic arrow is slightly stronger than others, overcoming hardships with his broken magic and eventually rising to become the greatest mage. Volume 01, Chapter 01, Banished as a Failure, restricted to using magic arrows only. Magic arrow. As I uttered these words, a white arrow shot from my outstretched hand diagonally upwards. It streaked through the sky, hitting a distant flying bird. The bird, after a moment of startled squawk, lost balance and plummeted straight down. "Seems like we'll have tonight's dinner sorted." I began walking towards where the bird had fallen. Magic arrow. It's a magic that shoots a magical arrow from one's extended hand. A staple in the world of magic known even to children. It's the most fundamental of spells. It's no exaggeration to say it's the first magic every apprentice mage learns. And I was no exception. It was the first magic I learned. And the last. These few words encapsulate my 26 years of life. Just 2 lines. That's my whole life summed up. I was born into the noble Earl's family. Though born as the eldest son, I wasn't particularly talented. Constantly compared to my excellent younger brother, I endured endless gossip. Such a shame about Albert's armor. Truly a personification of dullness. So pitiful compared to his brother. It pains me to think of your parents' feelings. If only the birth order were reversed, there'd be no cause for concern. It was frustrating. But I couldn't retort because it was the truth. Even my parents' gaze acknowledged it as such. Yet, amidst all that, there was one talent I possessed, or rather, believed I possessed. Magic. I could use magic arrow without any specific training. I was merely 10 years old at the time. It truly surprised everyone. A magic talent in that dullard brother. It was the moment when joy and pride first appeared in my parents' eyes as they looked at me. From then on, I immersed myself in the study of magic. In the end, I couldn't learn any magic besides magic arrow, but my parents watched over me. Albert, becoming a mage requires rigorous training from a young age. There's no need to rush. I, too, believed in my own talent. I can do it. I can surely become someone. It's because of this talent that I lacked in all other areas. At 15, I enrolled in the Royal Capital's Magic Academy to prove it. And, I failed there, not because I was overwhelmed by the level of others around me. It was due to the problem preceding that. The inability to overcome my own low level. I couldn't learn any magic besides magic arrow. Despite being a magic school, there were plenty of students who could handle around 10 different spells already. I thought, someday I'll catch up. But I couldn't learn a single new magic. The gap only widened. Moreover, while I stagnated with only magic arrow, other students were rapidly learning new spells. I was left behind. The status of a mage is determined by the number of magic spells one can use. Before I knew it, I had gone from being a prodigy to a failure. In the end, before even a year passed, I fled from the Magic Academy. Not voluntary withdrawal, I literally fled. I packed my belongings from the dormitory and ran away without saying a word to anyone. What I believed unquestionably was not true. The reality was that I was nothing but a dullard. It crushed me, pushed me to the brink. So much so that I could only flee. I had some money given by my parents for living expenses, so I wandered for a while. I didn't want to go home. The cold gaze of my parents, it scared me. But the money ran out. At that time, I, a sheltered noble's child who knew nothing of the world, couldn't survive alone. I knocked on my family's door. What awaited me was the cold gaze of my parents and my brother. My father said, "A disgrace to the family." There are plenty of nobles' children at that school. Thanks to them, our family is a laughingstock. We're known as the shameless ones who fled from school. He continued. Stupidity remains stupidity after all. I should have kept you confined at home without any expectations. At least then our family name wouldn't have been tarnished. Stupidity. It was the first time I heard that word from my own father's mouth. I knew he thought of me that way, but he had always shown some consideration in his own way, never voicing it directly to me. But now, those words finally escaped his lips. Father, I began, wanting to say something, but he paid no heed, speaking as though ignoring my existence and words entirely. That's enough. Don't speak. Don't do anything. Don't expect anything. You're better off gone. Just disappear from our sight. He added finally. You are banished. Never dare to bear the name of Luminous again. And so, I was cast out from the house. Not that I was left penniless. As if it were his final duty as a parent, my father arranged a place for me to live and provided me with living expenses. It was essentially a severance package. 10 years passed since then. I've been living alone in the dwelling provided to me. Until a few years ago, there was an elderly maid who took care of my daily needs, but she retired due to her age. I didn't hire a new maid. I had learned enough self-sufficiency to manage on my own, at least to the extent of handling the basic chores like cooking and cleaning. Lost in these thoughts, I arrived at my destination. There it is. Emerging from the woods, I spotted a bird lying in the grass. My home was located a bit away from the capital, nestled in a serene area surrounded by sparse woods. It seemed to have been a villa originally owned by an acquaintance of my father, an old aristocrat, which he apparently inherited. Approaching the lifeless bird, I startled. Someone was sitting in the shade beside the road leading to the capital. Though it was indeed the road to the capital, it wasn't the main route, so people rarely passed by here. Hence, I didn't expect to see anyone. The figure wore a pure white robe, with the hood drawn over their face, making it hard to discern their gender. They seemed oblivious to my presence, not even flinching. It didn't matter who was there, but it felt a bit embarrassing after my previous soliloquy. Well, it didn't really matter. Let's just retrieve the bird and leave. As I turned to head back to the woods, thud. A strange sound caught my attention. A traveler who had been resting in the shade was now lying on the ground. I thought, finding their posture unnatural. It wasn't like they were peacefully asleep. It seemed more like they had suddenly collapsed. Approaching the traveler, "Hey, are you all right?" No response. I knelt down and shook the traveler's shoulder. Still no reaction. But it allowed me to see their face. A woman. She looked around 15. Her shoulder-length hair was as white as snow. Her face was unnaturally pale, and her breathing was ragged. When I reached out to her neck, it was alarmingly warm. Shall I take her home for care? There was a slight hesitation. Not that I wanted to avoid trouble, not in that sense. I had plenty of time on my hands anyway. It's just, would it be appropriate to take an unconscious young woman, whom I didn't know, to my solitary home? Ugh. The woman let out a pained sigh. I sighed too. It seemed I didn't have much time to ponder. Hoping there wouldn't be any misunderstandings, I lifted the woman's body. Chapter 02. The range of my magic arrow. Returning home, I laid the woman I had been carrying in the bedroom. She still seemed groggy, murmuring in discomfort while maintaining a rough breathing rhythm. Throughout that day and the next, she slept fitfully, appearing to struggle with her rest. Occasionally, I would enter the room to change the damp towel I had placed on her head or to apply a sponge moistened with water to her lips. The disturbance occurred on the morning of the day after next. As I sat having breakfast in the adjacent room, I heard faint, quiet sounds emanating from the bedroom. Had she awakened? Leaving my half-eaten breakfast, I opened the door to the neighboring room. By the way, I forgot to knock. Years of living alone had erased that habit from my mind. The bed was empty. Only disheveled sheets remained, evidence of someone having lain there moments before. "Ah!" A voice came from the side. A woman's voice. Glancing over, I saw the young woman with pure white hair, about 15 years old, whom I had aided, standing in front of the bookshelf. Her eyes trembled with unease, her lips tightly pressed together in consternation. The word caution seemed to emanate from her tense body. "Well, if you woke up in a strange house, and a man 10 years your senior suddenly emerged after you opened the door, it's natural to freeze in fear." I raised my hands in a placating gesture. "Are you feeling okay? I found you collapsed on the roadside, so I brought you here to rest." She seemed to understand what I was saying. With a startled expression, she hurriedly lowered her head. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have reacted like that to someone who helped me. Thank you very much. No, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I waved my hand dismissively. Anyway, are you hungry? You've been bedridden for a while. I was just having breakfast. Would you like some? No, I can't trouble you that much. As the girl shook her head in a panic, the aroma of the soup I was eating wafted into the room, a pleasant fragrance, as if triggered by it. Gurgle. Her stomach growled. Oh, blushing, she clutched her stomach. I chuckled softly. Don't hesitate. Overexertion isn't good for your body. I ushered the girl to the dining table. I placed bread and soup made from chicken broth in front of her. It's soup made from the bird I shot down. It's delicious. Thank you, the girl exclaimed and immediately began devouring the food. She must have been really hungry. After she polished off her meal, I asked her, would you like seconds? After a moment of hesitation, she timidly replied, yes, please. After finishing her meal, she bowed her head to me across the table. Thank you so much for the wonderful meal. Don't mention it. Did you enjoy it? Yes, very much. She blushed. Oh, sorry. Despite receiving so much from you, I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Laura. Laura, huh? My name is Albert. I stopped mid-sentence. My father's voice echoed in my mind. You are banished. Never again shall you claim the name Luminous. It's Albert. With that, I directed a question at Laura. That road leads to the capital, but were you heading there, Laura? Yes, I was on my way to take the entrance exam for the Royal Academy of Magic. Oh, I see. Come to think of it, it was around this time that I went for my exam too. Albert, are you interested in magic? Why do you ask? Well, I couldn't help but notice earlier that there were many books on magic in that room. I see. I remembered. She must have seen the remnants of a dream I couldn't discard, brought from my family home. Just a passing interest. I dabbled a bit. I even aimed for the Magic Academy at one point, but in the end, I gave up. Because I lacked talent, I said with a thin smile. A lie. I had attended the kingdom's Magic Academy, but that bitter past was not something I wished to share with others. At that moment, Laura began to visibly flounder. What? I am sorry, huh? That I shouldn't have said that to someone like you. About taking the exam. Laura bowed her head so profusely that I felt apologetic. I feel apologetic myself. After all, I was the one who lied. Don't worry about it. It's a closed chapter for me now. Thank you for saying so. To ease Laura's distress, I changed the subject. So, while you were on your way to the academy, why did you collapse? I walked from my hometown to the kingdom, but I guess I got tired. That must have been tough. I'm grateful you took care of me, Albert. I don't think I would have recovered this quickly otherwise. It was quite a tight schedule. Tight indeed. When is the exam? Tomorrow, from noon on the 17th of February. Tomorrow? The 17th of February. Tomorrow? Yes. Why? Laura looked at me with a puzzled expression. I swallowed hard and with a feeling akin to pronouncing a death sentence, I spoke. Sorry, but the 17th of February is today. Eh? Laura's mouth fell open. Her expression gradually shifted from confusion to panic. What? Today's the exam day? I've only slept for one day, right? No, you've been asleep for 2 full days. As such. Laura was speechless. I looked out the window. The soft morning sunlight streamed in. The exam hadn't started yet, but it would begin in just 4 hours. Even if we rushed from here, we wouldn't reach the capital until late afternoon. Especially with the body still recovering from illness, there was no way we could make it in time. Laura held her head in her hands. I'm sorry, Mayor, Uncle, Aunt, Mom, Dad, everyone in the village. You all cheered me on so much. But I can't meet your expectations. I stood up. Don't be so despondent. We still have 4 hours, right? We can make it. There's no way. We can make it in time. There's still about an hour to spare. Your belongings are in the bedroom, so get ready for the journey. Oh, you might want to tidy up a bit. It's a big stage we're heading to. Feel free to use the water bucket. It seemed she didn't quite grasp the meaning of my words. The girl looked at me with a puzzled expression. You'll make it in time. Take your time getting ready and come out. I'll be waiting outside. With that, I stepped out of the house. Take your time getting ready and come out. I'll be waiting outside. That's what the man in front of her, Albert, said as he exited the house. Laura couldn't understand at all. Make it in time? There's absolutely no way she could make it in time. Was it just wishful thinking? But Albert had no reason to say such a thing. Various thoughts crossed Laura's mind, but she stopped doubting. There was only that left. She had no choice but to cling to the thread of spider silk that Albert had let down for her. Though Albert had given her about an hour, Laura finished getting ready in less than 30 minutes. As she stepped outside, Albert was waiting for her. With chestnut hair and dark eyes, his features were rather refined. He seemed to be about 10 years older than Laura. A man of a quiet demeanor, Albert noticed Laura and stood up from the stump. "You're early. Are you ready to go?" "Yes." "I don't want to waste any time." "But, are we really going to make it?" "Of course." Albert stood beside Laura. "I'll transport us with my magic arrow." Magic arrow? Laura's mind grew even more confused. Magic arrow was a basic, no, an extremely basic magic. It's what most magicians learn first. It's a spell that shoots a white arrow at a target. What use could such a thing have in this situation? Now then, the capital should be in that direction. Albert pointed his hand diagonally upwards. "Sorry, but hold on to my body. It's dangerous." It was embarrassing, but Laura did as she was told. It was too late to be shy now. Then, suddenly, Laura remembered a certain scene. In her mind, the place where she had rested emerged. While she rested, a bird fell from the sky and crashed onto the ground. "The super made from the bird I shot down." That's what Albert had said. Probably, that bird was shot down by Albert with magic. But, that's a strange story. The range of magic arrow varies depending on the skill of the user, but it's usually 50 meters. Shooting down a flying bird would be difficult unless aimed directly from below. However, Albert wasn't close by at that time. "So, does that mean?" Albert-san." What's the range of your magic arrow?" 13 kilometers. "What?" Laura thought she misheard. Albert's calm voice continued. "Magic arrow." Immediately after, Laura's vision rapidly shifted. Chapter 03, to the Royal Academy of Magic. From my waist. Laura's scream echoed. To succinctly explain the current situation, we were flying through the sky, looking down from above. We pierced through the high heavens and the azure sky. There exists a magic called flight magic. Of course, I can't use it. The only magic I can use is the magic arrow. Thus, this is also a magic arrow. I grab hold of the magic arrow I fired and fly through the air by having the arrow pull me along. It's quite a weight when it's the weight of 2 people, but strangely, perhaps due to the effect of magic, I don't feel it. It feels as though I've grown wings myself. Why am I able to do such a thing? Even I don't really understand. Back in my student days, I couldn't pull off such tricks. If there's anything I can think of, it would be the days since I retired. Every day, if I had free time, I would immerse myself in magic books. Only the pages with the magic arrow that took everything from me, but I couldn't discard it because it was all I had. So, for the past 10 years, I've continued to study the magic of the magic arrow as if clinging to it, and then, one day, my magic arrow seemed to have been slightly enhanced. This is the result of that. It's nothing particularly boast-worthy because a magician's status is determined by the number of magics they can use. For example, the legendary magician Magnus, who is at the pinnacle, manipulates 1,000 magics and is hailed as the 1,000. Generally, being called a full-fledged magician means mastering 100 magics. 100. That title is the envy of magicians. That's how important the number of magics one can use is. Even if my magic arrow has become a bit stronger, I, who can only use 1 magic, remain a dropout. Mr. Belt, Mr. Albert. Laura interrupted my thoughts. Amazing. Is this real? This magic arrow? Is this a revolution? Thank you, I replied quietly. Perhaps Laura is trying to be considerate. Even though she's 10 years younger than me, I understand my own shortcomings the best. I felt the momentum of the magic arrow I was holding weakening. It seems like we're nearing the 13 kilometers range limit. I extend my free left hand forward. Magic arrow. As soon as it activates, I switch from the old magic arrow to a new one. The speed increases significantly. I've never seen magic like this before. Perhaps surprised by the resurgence of acceleration, Laura's tone turned into a scream. What was she trying to say? Be careful. Babbling unnecessarily might make you bite your tongue. After transferring magic arrows several times, we soon arrived above the royal capital. Near the enormous royal castle, the magnificent school building of the Magic Academy is visible. Normally, I wouldn't pay much attention, but today it's our destination, so it can't be helped. It stands there unchanged from 10 years ago. As if nothing has changed, unaware of my enrollment or dropout, it remains unchanged. Laura's arms wrapped around my waist tighten. That's the Royal Academy of Magic, isn't it? Her voice was filled with a fervent yearning. It brings back nostalgic feelings. Yes, I had those too. The longing for the Magic Academy, and the pride of being able to enroll. Yeah, it is. It's nothing but bitter memories for now. We landed in an obscure spot near the academy, heading towards its main gate. As we neared the gate, the density of boys and girls around Laura and me increased. Tension was palpable on every face. Understandable. They, too, came to take the exam. Today feels like a crucial crossroad in their lives, each step taken with utmost deliberation. That they're still walking outside means, we've arrived. We stood in front of the main gate. We made it in time. Thank you, Albert. Laura's excitement made her voice tremble. Glancing at the large clock mounted on the school building, there was still plenty of time until noon. Well then, do your best. Saying so, I smiled at her, about to return the grin when someone grabbed my right arm. It was Laura. I tilted my head. Do you still need something from me? Well, how about Albert? Why don't you also take the entrance exam for the Magic Academy? Me? You seemed interested in the Magic Academy, right? Your magic arrow earlier was amazing. I think you should showcase that talent to the world. Laura misunderstands me. I can use the magic arrow, but I'm just a magician who can only use that one spell. If the pinnacle is the 1,000 magnas, then I'm only worth 1,000th of that. Overestimation. Just a man slightly adept with the magic arrow, and it's a place I once fled, a place marked by defeat in life. I shouldn't have the will to stand there again. But, why is that? My heart didn't show a 100% rejection. There was a lingering feeling, a pull on my heartstrings. I'm not interested. It would be easy to cut it off decisively and disappear from Laura's sight. But I couldn't. Alone, I would never have approached this academy. I would have never considered retaking the entrance exam. But it happened because I brought Laura here, to this place, on this day. Does that coincidence hold any meaning? I don't know. What I do know is that my heart clearly hesitates to reject Laura's invitation. I answered according to my heart. All right, it's worth a shot. Let's give it a try. Upon hearing my words, Laura's face lit up. Yes, let's do it. Let's work hard together. I passed through the main gate, stepping into the academy. Like this, the time that stopped for me 10 years ago had begun moving again. Chapter 04, the first practical exam, Magic Arrow. Around noon, the entrance exam for the School of Magic began. The expansive courtyard of the academy was bustling with examinees. The academy in the capital city stood as the pinnacle of magical learning institutions. It was no wonder children from across the country gathered here. A middle-aged teacher stood on a raised platform, looking down at us and delivering his greetings. Young talents, we consider it an honor that you have chosen to pass through the gates of our academy on this day. Just as you seek the finest education, so do we seek the highest talents. We do not close our doors to those with potential. Show us your abilities, and we hope you will study here at our academy. After a lengthy speech, he continued, lastly, it may come as a surprise, but today we have the esteemed presence of Court Magician Carlyle, who wishes to observe. Please ensure no errors occur during your demonstrations. With that, the male teacher descended from the platform. Court Magician Carlyle. At the mention of that name, murmurs rippled through the examinees. Even Laura, who had been quietly listening to the teacher beside me, let out an exclamation. I whispered to Laura, "Who's that?" You don't know. I've been out of the loop for quite some time, having lived as a recluse for 10 years. Laura quietly explained to me. Sir Carlyle is one of the top talents in the history of the academy, now serving as the court magician. Court magicians. Those magicians directly serving the royal family. It was the highest rank among court magicians. Incredible. Indeed, it's unprecedented for someone to become a court magician at 25. 25? I couldn't help but raise my voice. I quickly covered my mouth and bowed to those around me. Attaining such a position was no easy feat. Becoming a court magician required years of dedicated study and contributions to the nation. Typically, it was a position held by experienced, elderly magicians. 25. Is he really 25? Yes, and not only that, he's mastered up to 7th level magic at that age. 7th level, the title given to magicians who could manipulate over 700 types of magic. Mastering over 700 at 25. That was no ordinary talent. It was no wonder the examinees aspiring to step into the world of magic were excited. Perhaps, he even surpassed Magnus, the legendary magician who mastered over 1,000 types of magic. I muttered to myself quietly, so Laura couldn't hear. On one hand, there's a 26-year-old grain miller who can only handle one type of magic. On the other hand, there's a 25-year-old court magician who can handle over 700 types. It's like comparing a tortoise gazing at the moon to... Well, there's simply no comparison. The difference in our paths is too vast, almost to the point of being frustrating. As Laura had said, a man of similar age to me ascended the platform. He was a slender man with frameless glasses. His shoulder-length golden hair was longer than usual for a man. With his sweet features, he must have been quite popular among noblewomen at court. As soon as the man appeared, the examinees exclaimed, "Wow!" The male teacher from earlier repeated, "Quiet, quiet." Once the commotion settled, Carlyle began to speak. "Today, by chance, I have the opportunity to observe your exams. However, I'm not here to assess you individually, but rather to ensure the examinations are conducted properly. So, it's not you who should be nervous, but rather the teachers of the school. Remember, it's counterproductive to be nervous, isn't it, candidates?" Carlyle joked in a light-hearted tone. "Well, you see, since it's the Royal School of Magic, there shouldn't be any issues, right? In fact, we've been quite lax, assuming everything's fine. So, I thought I'd take a moment to reminisce about my early days by watching your efforts. Please do your best." With a smile and a nod, Carlyle descended from the platform with graceful steps. Truly, he was a flawless man. To have become a court magician at 25, his talents surely extended beyond just magic. "Well, it doesn't matter. There's no chance our paths will cross further. Now, let's begin the exams." A booming voice echoed from the male instructor. We divided into groups based on our assigned numbers, heading towards our respective examiners. Since Laura and I registered for the exam simultaneously, we ended up in the same group. The middle-aged man, our designated examiner, began to speak. "From now on, we shall commence the first test with magic arrows." He gestured behind him. There stood a target attached to a pole, about the size of a human's outstretched hands in diameter. "From the green line here, you'll each shoot 3 magic arrows. The distance is 30 meters. Show us your mastery of magic." A wave of nostalgia washed over me. 10 years ago, I underwent the same test. It's reassuring that nothing has changed. If things were different, I'd be out of the competition by now. Of course, it's not a coincidence that nothing has changed. Magic arrow is the foundation of magic. Many magicians learn magic arrow as their first spell. In that sense, it's an equal choice as an exam subject. Magic arrow, magic arrow, magic arrow. The examiner fired 3 magic arrows in rapid succession. They landed near the center of the target with considerable accuracy. This is how it's done. The target is protected by defensive magic. Your magic, as exam candidates, won't break it, so don't hold back in hitting it. The examiner continued speaking. Now, each candidate will take the test in numerical order. Number 389, step forward. Number 389, that's me. I'm off. Good luck. Laura saw me off. As I stepped out of the group, the other candidates stirred. From what I could catch of their fragmented conversations, "Isn't that person a student? They seem quite mature, don't they?" seemed to be the general consensus. "Well, it's only natural. This is a school of magic. The candidates overwhelmingly belong to the teens. There are indeed repeaters from prestigious families, but someone like me, a 10-year veteran, is rare." Laughter echoed. "Think about your age, huh?" Accompanied by such remarks, though not many voiced it aloud. Inwardly, many of the candidates probably thought the same, but there's no point in letting it bother me. I stood at the green line, extending my hand towards the target. Magic arrow. A radiant arrow shot forth from my hand, hurtling towards the target. Boom! With a resounding crash, the target shattered into smithereens. Chapter 5, The Unfathomable Standards. Clang, 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 resonated through the air, followed by a cacophony of crashing debris as the fragments of what once stood as a target, supported by sturdy pillars, scattered across the ground. It seemed to have shattered completely. Turning towards the examiner, I spoke up. It broke on the first shot. What should we do about the subsequent ones? The examiner's tone was unclear. Well, muttering to themselves. The examiner seemed perplexed. Was the protective spell not in place? No. When I initially cast the magic arrow, everything seemed fine. They mumbled. Examiner? I prodded again, drawing their attention. Oh, yes. Sorry, seems like something went wrong. Could you retry on the target next to it? The examiner requested. Understood, I replied, moving towards the adjacent target. And then, magic arrow, boom, with a loud noise, the target shattered into smithereens. No, 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 this isn't right, the examiner exclaimed. Both targets malfunctioning is unacceptable. Are you perhaps cheating? They accused. Cheating? I was taken aback. Yes, even if it was a malfunction, a mere magic arrow shouldn't have caused such extensive damage. The examiner pointed at me, shouting, "Are you cheating?" They repeated, exclamation mark. Using other magic disguised as magic arrow, aren't you? This was troublesome. It wasn't possible, though, because I could only use the magic arrow. However, that was my circumstance. The agitated examiner wouldn't understand. Amidst my dilemma, a voice came from behind. Turning around, I saw an unexpected figure. Court Mage Carlyle. His gentle expression fell upon us. The examiner straightened up, reporting to Carlyle with a tense voice. This examinee is suspected of using magic other than the magic arrow, disguising it as such, and we were investigating. Oh, really? Why do you think so? Carlyle inquired. Targets protected by defensive magic shouldn't be destroyed by a mere magic arrow, especially not two in a row. It seems like cheating, the examiner explained. I see, Carlyle nodded thoughtfully. Then, he looked at me. Did you cheat? He asked. No, I didn't, I replied. I see, Carlyle nodded with a smile, then turned to the examiner. He says he didn't. Isn't that fine? But, do you have any evidence? Carlyle interrupted. Evidence. Proof that he indeed cheated, Carlyle clarified. Well, there isn't any. In that case, there's no point in this conversation. Carlyle shrugged. Examiner. Your job is to evaluate the examinees and detect cheating. But if you can't provide evidence of cheating, then it's your loss, Carlyle concluded with a sympathetic tone. The examiner's shoulders slumped. Sorry, but I think Carlyle's right, I added with a resigned sigh. The examiner relented, realizing the futility of their accusation. The extraordinary, beyond the grasp of ordinary minds, silence lingered in the air. For instance, why not try using magic to analyze the magic he employed? I cannot do that. Can you? Lord Carlyle? I can. The examiner's face lit up instantly. So, shall we? Nope. Carlyle chuckled dryly. I am merely an auditor. I cannot assist in evaluations. With a simple refusal, Carlyle patted my shoulder. So, for you, the first stage of the test is over. You should wait for the next examination. No, it's not over yet. I shook my head, perplexing Carlyle with a crack in his gentle expression. What do you mean? The test consists of 3 magic arrows. I have only fired 2 so far. Ha ha ha. I see. How intriguing. Is it intriguing? But it's fair. It's right for you to assert your rights. However, it would also be troublesome if the targets were to be damaged again. They are not so numerous. After placing his hand on his chin in thought, Carlyle continued. I've got it. I'll take your magic arrows specially. A stir swept through the surrounding examinees. You? Carlyle grinned in response to my words. I can be a target replacement at least. What? That's not. No. An anxious examiner intervened hastily. I mean, in case of any unfortunate incidents. There's no chance, let alone 1 in a billion. He waved his hand dismissively. How about it then? I don't mind, I replied promptly. As long as I can shoot the magic arrows. All right. It's getting interesting. Carlyle briskly walked towards the broken target. Is this distance all right? Carlyle extended his right hand. Hard protection. A circular shield appeared around Carlyle's right hand. Go ahead whenever you're ready. No need to hold back. Understood. I aimed my right hand towards Carlyle, and then, the triggering words escaped my lips. Magic Arrow, Chapter 06. The Challenge to the Supreme Court Magician. Carlyle, the Magic Arrow. A white arrow released from my hand flew straight towards Carlyle, my arrow and Carlyle's shield. Those two collided head-on. A deafening noise echoed, deflected by Carlyle's shield and seemingly disappearing effortlessly. Everyone must have thought so of my magic arrow, but it didn't turn out that way. It steadily embedded itself into Carlyle's shield. Crack, a faint sound was heard. It was the sound of Carlyle's feet, unable to withstand the force, being pushed backward. Carlyle's right hand, supporting my magic arrow, trembled. The elbow, which was stretched out, began to change angles under the pressure. Carlyle looked at me and grinned. How amusing. You. The moment he spoke, Carlyle shouted, "Ha!" simultaneously with his voice. He changed the angle of his arm, pressing my magic arrow onto the ground. A white radiance burst like a bomb. After the flash faded, Carlyle stood up coolly. I've been entertained. As soon as everyone saw him like that, cheers erupted from the examinees. As expected, Lord Carlyle. He's truly overwhelming. Amazing. Amidst the cheers, Carlyle walked calmly towards me. The third shot is over. Are you satisfied now? Yes, I am satisfied as long as I can shoot the magic arrow. Good to hear. Then the test is concluded. Well done. Thank you for your company. I extended my right hand for a farewell handshake. But Carlyle didn't shake hands back. He just looked at my hand silently without saying anything. When I tilted my head in confusion, the examiner intervened between Carlyle and me. Fool. How dare you ask for a handshake from Lord Carlyle? There are limits to rudeness. Ah, so that's how it is. Certainly, I'm just an unknown examinee. It's unthinkable to shake hands with the nation's treasure, the genius court magician. My apologies for the rudeness. I turned my back to Carlyle and tried to return to where Laura was waiting. Wait, Carlyle called out to me. What's your name? I'm Albert. Albert, huh? Carlyle smiled faintly. I'll remember that name. With those parting words, Carlyle also walked away to somewhere. I returned to Laura's side. Great job, Albert-san. That was amazing. Oh, really? Yes. Because you received magic from Lord Carlyle. It's such a rare opportunity. Oh, right. I hadn't paid much attention, but indeed, it was an unusual occurrence. Should I have unleashed the magic arrows with full force? Despite his assurance that I need not hold back, I fired the first and second shots with roughly the same strength, but not quite my all. Well, the aim wasn't to defeat him, just to make some good memories, I suppose. Oh, they've called my number. I'll be right back. Do your best. Laura dashed forward eagerly. Magic arrow, magic arrow, magic arrow. 3 white arrows released by Laura soared toward the target. All 3 hit the mark, not dead center, but all struck without missing entirely. Not a bad performance. Observing the other examinees, some couldn't even reach the target 30 meters away or send their arrows flying in the wrong direction. I called out to Laura upon her return. Not bad, huh? Yes, I was nervous, but thankfully my aim held steady. Yet, she tilted her head with a hint of unease. It would be nice to receive a good evaluation. I wonder. The magic arrow serves as the cornerstone of all magic and is often the first spell learned by many magicians. So, if one becomes a magic arrow enthusiast like me, they can discern a magician's prowess just by observing their arrows. Laura is well trained for her age. She must be a talented magician, blessed with both talent and a conducive environment. Far more than I was 10 years ago. So, I smiled reassuringly at Laura. Don't worry, I think you'll pass, Laura. If you say so, then I'll feel really confident if Albert praises me. She seems to trust me for some reason. Whatever the reason, if Laura has confidence because of it, I'm glad. And thus, the first stage examination concluded. As far as I recall, the practical part ends here. Next comes the written exam, and then the examination will be over. Or so I thought. The examiner's voice boomed. Now, we shall commence the second practical examination. It's not over, then. Looks like 10 years is quite a long time after all. The second test is Dispel Magic. a trial of dispelling magical effects. We'll be handing out enchanted items prepared here. Your task is to remove the magic within the given time limit. This could be bad. Upon hearing the examiner's announcement, I muttered under my breath. Beside me, Laura tilted her head. What's wrong? I can't use dispel magic. Chapter 07, the second practical exam of the entrance test. Dispel magic. I'm no good at it. The second practical exam was about dispelling magic, a skill I, unfortunately, couldn't wield. My repertoire of magic was limited to magic arrow. In other words, my fate was sealed here. That's when Laura spoke up to reassure me. It's all right. Huh? I'll teach you right now. I'll guide you through it. I couldn't respond immediately because I knew how this would end. A decade ago, I had studied magic at the academy tirelessly. From dawn till dusk, I relentlessly pursued the belief in my own talent. Studying non-stop to prove myself. I studied extensively, but nothing stuck. Dispel magic was among those elusive skills. So even if Laura taught me on the spot, the outcome wouldn't change. But, all right, I'll trust you, I replied to Laura. Returning home would only grant me a brief respite. Knowing I could only earn a meager income for the little time I had, unfortunately, as an idle person, time was something I had in abundance. If that's the case, struggling until the end wouldn't hurt. Moreover, Laura's kindness in offering help shouldn't be dismissed lightly. The examiner shouted instructions loudly. The next test will take place in the classrooms. Follow along. With that, the examiner and the examinees began to move in unison. While listening to Laura's rapid instructions on dispel magic, I followed suit. As soon as we arrived in the classroom, the examinees were seated. The examiner announced, "We'll now proceed with the written test." Simultaneously, the second practical exam will take place. The assigned officials will call you out one by one, so when called, leave the classroom and follow instructions. And so, the written test commenced. After a while, another examiner entered the room. Number 389. Second practical exam. Number 389. That was me. As it was during the first practical exam, apparently, I had the first number in this group. The examiner led me to another location in the school building. A study room partitioned into small cubicles. Rows of partitioned small rooms were neatly arranged. The examiner placed their hand on a jar on the desk and muttered something. The jar emitted a dim light. Then, the examiner handed me the jar and a small instrument. "I've enchanted this jar. Your task is to dispel it. You have 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, even if you haven't succeeded, return here when the bell on this instrument rings." I see. That's how it works. I moved into one of the small rooms. A small desk was arranged inside. I placed the jar and the instrument on it and sat down. Now then, let's give it a try. I touched the jar and recalled the theory of dispel magic that I had practiced countless times during my student days. Practicing it for the first time in over 10 years, basically, a decade had passed since then. It would be nice if, by some miracle, I could use it. I took a deep breath and uttered the triggering phrase, "Dispel magic." Nothing happened. The jar continued to emit a faint light. As expected, it seemed I couldn't use dispel magic. Of course, why would I be able to? I hadn't done anything. Something I couldn't use 10 years ago wouldn't suddenly become usable now. Such casual miracles don't happen. I sighed, but I had no choice but to make it happen. I had to cling to it. There was no other way to pass this besides using dispel magic. Dispel magic, dispel magic, dispel magic, dispel magic, dispel magic. I attempted it repeatedly. Recalling the memories of my student days, I uttered the triggering phrase over and over. No response. It was like a replay of 10 years ago. No matter how much I wished, no matter how much I longed, anything other than magic arrow wouldn't respond to me. It wouldn't lend me its power. Those unpleasant memories resurfaced in my mind. My concentration faltered. Feeling queasy, I exhaled heavily and clawed at my chest with my right hand. Damn. Still no good, huh? Glancing at the gauge, I saw there was only 1 minute left. Time was up. It seemed inevitable, but just as I was about to give up, a flash of insight traced through my mind like lightning. Huh? That spark said to me, "Shoot that vase with magic arrow." No, that's not it. It's more like this. Shoot the magic itself entwined in that vase with magic arrow. I still didn't quite grasp the meaning of this revelation. I pondered the words while staring intently at a point on the wall. Not the vase itself, pierced through the magic cast upon it. Can I really do such a thing? If it were possible, it might yield the same effect as dispel magic. My common sense interfered. Surely that couldn't be possible. Magic arrow is a spell for physical destruction. It shouldn't have any effect on something without a form like magic. Yet, I also thought this. Throughout the 999 magic, only magic arrow never abandoned me, from start to finish. If anything, could it pull through for me? 10 seconds remained. No time left to think. I exhaled gently. I pressed my hand against the vase. I gambled in the direction my heart believed in. It had been a challenge after a decade. I just wanted it to end without regret. Even if I failed, it would only be a cheap vase that shattered. I could apologize, and they would forgive me. I closed my eyes and traced the surface of the vase. I focused, trying to imprint even the slightest trace of the magical energy residing there into my consciousness. There's no time, but I didn't rush. Precision. I need to improve the precision, even just a bit. Eventually, ping, the gauge began to sound loudly. Simultaneously, I widened my eyes and uttered the name of my longtime companion, a name I had repeated countless times. Magic Arrow, Chapter 8, Exam Finished, New Potential of the Magic Arrow. A voice resonated from behind me. Number 389, the alarm on your instrument is ringing. Time's up. Give up and leave. My awareness, which had been somewhat distant, instantly returned. Just as the examiner said, a loud noise emanated from the instrument. I had been so dazed that I hadn't heard the sound. Slowly, I reached out and pressed the switch on the instrument. The noise ceased. Sorry, I'll leave now. I rose slowly and handed the shattered vase to the examiner. Is this dispelled? The examiner scrutinized the vase. It had returned to its state before magical enhancement. Just an ordinary vase. Yes, it seems to have just made it in time. The alarm was ringing. But well, it's fine. Consider it a pass. I returned to the classroom and began the written exam. The written exam wasn't much of a challenge. I had studied relentlessly when I was a candidate. Though my memory was a bit distant, it wouldn't hinder me from achieving the passing score. But the written exam didn't matter anymore. My mind kept replaying the last moments of the second practical exam. That moment, the magic arrow I unleashed, didn't shatter the vase. It smoothly sucked into the vase, and immediately afterward, with a small sound, the light covering the vase dissipated. The magic arrow had pierced only the magical power, just as I had intended. I would never forget that sight. I saw it, a new potential. I had never imagined such a thing was possible. There were still places for me to go. My world wasn't severed. There was more to my world. Was there meaning in taking the entrance exam for the Magic Academy for the second time? Entering the Magic Academy and pursuing that potential? Wasn't that what I should be doing? Deep in my heart, the desire to enroll in the Magic Academy swelled up. Until a moment ago, I had thought it didn't matter if I failed. I had even considered declining if I passed. Just a way to pass the time. That's how I had approached it. But now, I no longer felt that way. From the bottom of my heart, I wanted to try entering the Magic Academy. Perhaps, I might reach what I couldn't the first time. No, I wanted to make it happen. For the first time in 10 years. No, perhaps it was the first time in my life. My heart was ignited. Time's up. Finish the written exam. Put down your writing instruments. The exam was over. The results will be posted near the main gate in 3 days. Those who pass should come to the office to collect the paperwork. I left the classroom and met up with Laura. It's over, isn't it, Mr. Albert? Yeah, it is. We strolled outside the school building. Was the dispel magic okay? Yeah, somehow. Really? That's great, isn't it? It was just in time. I thought miracles can happen. Miracles? That's not it. It's because of your hard work, Mr. Albert. If that's the case, I'm glad. It definitely is. I hoped it was true. There couldn't be a happier outcome than the fruition of the 10 years I had dedicated to the magic arrow. Laura, did the dispel magic work out? Yes. It's fine. I'm better at dispel magic than magic arrow. Then, it's as good as passing already. How do you feel? I'm confident. But still, nothing but anxiety keeps crossing my mind. What if I fail? I understand that feeling. In fact, that's exactly how I feel right now. As my determination grew, so did my fear of failure. I want to pass, perhaps even more so than during my active years. I wished for it with a stronger conviction. As we conversed, we reached the main gate. Laura bowed her head gracefully. "Thank you so much for all your help today, Mr. Albert." I understood the meaning behind her words and gestures. The test was over. The small bond that connected Laura and me had also come to an end. "I'm glad you're so happy," I replied. "Yes, thank you very much indeed," Laura added. "I plan to stay at an inn in the capital until the day of the results announcement." "That sounds quite extravagant." "Oh no. It's a cheap inn because I don't have much money." "So, yes? If you don't mind, would you like to go see the results together on the announcement day?" It seemed that the bond between her and me had not yet been severed. With an anxious look, Laura continued, "I'm a bit nervous. I'd be happy if you could come with me. What do you say?" "I don't mind." "Really?" Laura clasped her hands together with joy. "That's great. Since we're both here, let's pass together." "Yes, indeed." After deciding on the meeting place and time, we parted ways. There were 3 days left. I had intended to return home. It wasn't a problem to stay in the capital since I wasn't short on money. However, I dreaded the possibility of running into acquaintances. I didn't want to see anyone who knew me from my days as a noble's son or from my time at the Magic Academy. I wasn't Albert Luminous anymore. Just plain Albert. I didn't want to meet anyone who knew the old me. I fervently wished that this day would mark the beginning of a new path in my life. No, I wanted it to start. I earnestly prayed for it. The day after, at noon, the day of the results announcement arrived. Teachers from the Magic Academy had gathered in the conference room. On the large round table, registration forms and test results of the examinees were sprawled out. They had been passionately discussing the passing line until just a moment ago. An elderly teacher in charge of the examination rose to his feet. "Then, we'll determine the results tomorrow based on the line we've just established." The other teachers nodded in agreement. At that moment, the results were set in stone. On the paper of examinee number 389, Albert, spread out on the round table, a black seal was stamped. The words "Not Qualified, Chapter 09, The Dance of Judgment." "Please hold on a moment." At the moment the verdict was reached, there arose a dissenting voice. All eyes turned to the speaker. "Who dares to overturn what we've finally decided through much debate?" Such hostile glares. But upon seeing the speaker, confusion swept through. Court Mage Carlyle. He had been participating in the meeting as an examiner for the exams. He had been silent all along, causing many teachers to almost forget his presence. The current training genius mage, favored by the king. His words couldn't be easily dismissed. "What is it, Carlyle?" the moderator teacher responded with a firm voice. "Please, don't be so tense. I simply wish to inquire." Carlyle tapped a piece of paper with his fingers. "On the paper of examinee number 389, Albert. Could you explain why he should be failed?" Carlyle took Albert's paper and read aloud the evaluations written there. "Albert, age 26. First practical exam, power, range, and precision all rated as special A. However, it's noted as a concern that his ability to easily destroy 2 targets doesn't seem typical of a regular magic arrow, suggesting some form of cheating. Second practical exam, successful dispel. Remaining time, 0 seconds. Written exam score, 68. It seems he's not outstanding based on the scores, but he barely crosses the passing line." Carlyle continued. "He seems to have passed both practical and written exams barely." "Why was he failed?" "There's a quota to consider. While he is indeed within the passing group, considering the quota, priority should be given to other students." "Why is that?" "Because of his age. Academia favors the young. He has a 10-year advantage over other examinees. If that's the case, he should produce overwhelming results." "I see. That makes sense. But I cannot accept that as an examiner," Carlyle said sharply. "Our kingdom advocates their right to education for all. Discrimination based on age is not commendable," the moderator teacher muttered in agreement. Other teachers offered support. "No, Carlyle Sama, this isn't age discrimination. Simply put, his performance isn't impressive." The second practical exam ended simultaneously with the time limit, and the written exam is mediocre. There are doubts even about the first practical exam. "There's no way to salvage this." "That's quite a strong rebuttal," Carlyle chuckled. "Then, let's put it this way." With a bang, Carlyle slammed Albert's paper onto the round table. "Please pass him. No reasons required." The atmosphere in the conference room froze. Carlyle's words meant this. No more discussion is needed. Follow my words. The moderator teacher raised their voice. With all due respect, that's clearly exceeding the authority of an examiner. Are you intending to disregard the Academy's independence? I'm not speaking as an examiner anymore. What? Carlyle smirked before continuing his words. As the court magician with higher authority than you, I command you to admit him. That's an order. All the teachers in the conference room were speechless, understandably so. Carlyle thought he had exerted his power, practically implying that he would crush anyone who dared to oppose. It's not a big deal, is it? Just admitting one student. Despite talking about quotas and such, there should be plenty of room for that. That's true, but, the moderator teacher responded with a voice cracked with tension. Why are you so fixated on this applicant, Lord Carlyle? Because I saw potential. Briefly, but with a strength that allowed no further questions, Carlyle spoke. He will be admitted. If you resist, be prepared for consequences. Good day. With that one-sided declaration, Carlyle left the conference room. Back in the administrative office of the Royal Palace, while sorting out documents, Professor Filbus from the School of Magic visited him. Filbus was a man with a short, extended trademark goatee. He and Carlyle were not just good friends from their academy days, they were more than friends. He was one of Carlyle's loyal followers. You're still as ruthless as ever, Carlyle. After you left, the teachers were furious. Carlyle paused his work to respond. Ha ha ha. I'm not going to waste time on futile arguments. I've made my decision, and once decided, it must be followed. If that means using authority or a high-handed attitude, so be it. Carlyle then tilted his head. So, will they comply? They were told by you. There's no one who would dare to defy you. It's good that they're sensible. So, why are you so fixated on that particular applicant? Care to enlighten me? Chapter 10 Announcement of Results. The story moves to a new stage. What was the reason for that obsession with the examinee? Carlyle had no intention of hiding anything from his trusted friend, Filbus. He began to speak smoothly about what was on his mind. Originally, someone else was supposed to go to the Academy's audit. Oh? But, the results of stargazing. I saw signs of great potential there. So, I adjusted to go myself. Great potential. Is that referring to him? It might be. I happened to take his magic arrow, and it had extraordinary power. It broke through my hard protection easily. I hurriedly deployed diamond protection on top of it, but still couldn't kill its power, so I slammed it into the ground. Carlyle raised his right hand smoothly. My hand was numb for quite a while due to its power. So, even your defensive magic couldn't kill its power. Unbelievable. Shall I tell you something even more unbelievable? Hey, there's more? Just a strong magic arrow wouldn't warrant such a strong recommendation. The examiners said that the magic arrow was unusual, suspected of foul play. I thought so too. Otherwise, that power couldn't be understood. So, I secretly cast magic on him. A kind that would analyze the magic he used and inform me. Oh, and then? The second practical exam. What magic do you think he used? The second? Isn't it supposed to be dispel magic? That's the exam, right? Carlyle shook his head. It was magic arrow. What? Albert used magic arrow in the second practical exam. He didn't use any other magic. No, wait. According to the scores you just read, it said dispel magic was successful, right? That's right. So, wait. This Albert guy used magic arrow to dispel it? It seems so. Unbelievable. Filbus said so, laughing loudly. Carlyle wanted to think so too. If it were true, it would be a shock to the magical theories humanity had built up. Isn't there a mistake, Carlyle? I mean, you wouldn't make a mistake in magic matters. That's why I wanted to keep him under observation. It would be easy to observe once he enters the school. Right, Mr. Filbus, the academy teacher? Filbus shrugged. So, that's my job, huh? Of course. I expect you to investigate and report on the mysterious student, Albert. Oh, come on. You're just dumping it on me, Filbus shouted, waving his arms. However, his face didn't seem entirely unwilling. Well, hearing that kind of talk does pique my interest too. I'm counting on you, Carlyle continued with a gloomy expression and voice. The era of peace won't last long. The hand of darkness is reaching various parts of the kingdom. Albert. If he's the hope to save it, then that's fine. But, On the day of the announcement of results, once again, I arrived in the capital city by Magic Arrow, meeting up with Laura before heading towards the main gate of the Academy of Magic. I've been feeling so uneasy these past 3 days. I kept thinking I might have failed. Laura, looking a bit worn out, expressed. How did it go for you, Albert? I inquired. I'm not particularly bothered, I replied. Your composure is incredible, Laura exclaimed. It's not exactly that, I shrugged. I, too, felt restless. However, I knew how to manage such emotions in such situations. By immersing myself in studying magic texts, I delved relentlessly into the pages of the Magic Arrow, over and over again. Thanks to that, I felt like I had gained an even deeper understanding of the Magic Arrow. Finally, the main gate came into view. Ugh, my stomach hurts, Laura groaned. In the distance, there was a gathering of what seemed to be examinees, all looking towards a large wooden board erected there, papers affixed to it. Quietly, a boy hung his head, while a girl raised her hands in joy. There, the fate-altering results must be posted. Eventually, we reached the board. Laura was the first to shout, pointing excitedly. Found it. There it is, number 390 and 389 too. We passed. We passed. Looking in the direction Laura indicated, indeed, those numbers were listed. 389 was mine, and 390 was Laura's. I let out a sigh of relief. It seemed I had managed to scrape through somehow. I had been criticized in the first practical test, and the second one was almost timed out. The written test, at best, would be average. It was a miracle I passed at all. To the village chief, grandparents, parents, siblings, and everyone in the village. Laura did it. Laura was genuinely ecstatic. You seem grateful to the whole village, I remarked. Oh, sorry, I got carried away. Laura blushed, embarrassed. No, it's fine. Did they really support you that much? I asked. Yes. Everyone pitched in, cheering me on. They pooled money to send me off. So, I want to live up to everyone's expectations, Laura explained. That's admirable. I nodded. Yes. And, of course, Albert. Thank you so much. Laura bowed her head. Huh? Why? I was taken aback. If you hadn't taken care of me, if you hadn't brought me to the capital, I would have been disqualified even before the exam. This success is all thanks to you, Albert. Laura expressed her gratitude. Well, haha, hearing that makes me embarrassed. I chuckled. Really? Thank you so much, Laura repeated earnestly. I'm also grateful to you, Laura, I admitted. Really? Laura looked at me, smiling. Yeah, it's like, I felt I should give it one more try, just once. If I hadn't found you collapsed back then, I'd probably still be quietly living in that house, I confessed. Laura smiled brightly at that. If our meeting has meaning, it's a wonderful thing, she remarked. Indeed, I agreed. I looked at the Academy of Magic's building. Before, I couldn't bring myself to face it, but now, it's different because I've decided to challenge it again. Because this time, I've sworn not to run away. The pain in my heart still lingers. The failure from 10 years ago still weighs heavily on my chest. Yet, still, I looked squarely at the building. I could see it. Here, I'll push the limits of the Magic Arrow. I'll prove that the glimpse of miracles I saw wasn't just a fluke. Albert. Laura softly smiled, extending her hand. From now on, let's be friends studying at the same school. Nice to meet you, she said. Yeah, likewise, I replied, firmly shaking Laura's hand. Chapter 11. Journey to Laura's village. Returning to the village once more, with Laura's suggestion, I'll escort you to my home, I proposed, and we swiftly flew back to my abode on a Magic Arrow. Thank you so much, you've been a great help. Whereabouts is Laura's village? Laura sketched a simple map to guide me. On foot, it would be quite a distance, but with my Magic Arrow, departing in the morning would see us arrive by evening. Due to transporting passengers, I maintained a gentle pace, faster than walking, with the ability to take shortcuts regardless of terrain. Returning to my hometown, Laura would surely appreciate an early arrival. For me, it's a day's journey. Shall I take you there? That's too much trouble, isn't it? It's no trouble at all. Besides, there's nothing to do at home anyway. With a hesitant murmur, Laura eventually nodded. Yes, please. Are you sure it's not an inconvenience? It's not. With a shy smile, Laura spoke up. Then, may I ask for your help? That day, she stayed overnight at my place, and the next morning, we set off. Over dinner, she shared. In my village, we have ancestors who are skilled sorcerers. Perhaps that's why occasionally, talented magic wielders are born. So that's you, Laura. Oh no. It's not like I'm particularly skilled. Later, with a bashful expression, Laura continued, but everyone in the village expects a lot from me. I want to live up to their expectations. They're all such kind people. I see. Then you must do your best. Yes. With a radiant smile, Laura nodded. After resting in separate rooms, the next morning, we aimed for Laura's village. The weather was clear, perfect for traveling. Magic arrow. We soared through the sky. During the exam day, Laura seemed nervous, but now, she seemed to genuinely enjoy the journey. Isn't this fun? Yes. I actually wanted to fly again. I'm glad you invited me. That's good to hear. We periodically landed to rest while aiming for Laura's village. As the afternoon waned into evening, the sky gradually darkened. This isn't good. Did I slow down too much? Once it's completely dark, we won't be able to see the village. Laura, is the village still far? No. We're almost there. Would it be possible to walk from here? Yes, it's fine. And so, we concluded our journey through the sky. We landed on solid ground. Can you find your way back alone? I'll bid farewell here. Laura grabbed my arm as I said that. No, it's not safe. What? It's already nighttime. Please stay in the village for the night. It's just right there, though not particularly fond of meeting new people. Laura persisted, leaving me at a loss for words. You've been helping us for so long. At least let us do this much for you. Or do you refuse? Understood. No need for reservations. Let's ask. Yes. And so, I followed Laura. With each step, the night grew deeper. Laura withdrew a small cane from her waist and chanted a spell. Illuminate. Light emanated from the tip of her wand. Beneath the unreliable moonlight, we steadily walked, relying on the magical light. Laura's steps were sure, indicating that we hadn't lost our way. It's okay even in the dark. Laura smiled reassuringly. I grew up here. I can find my way home even with my eyes closed. Indeed dependable. If I were to lose Laura here, I'd undoubtedly be lost. Then it happened. In the distance, vague lights akin to torches appeared. Not just one, multiple. Simultaneously, there was a tense, taut sound. A bowstring. Back home, I had undergone basic training in martial arts, so I recognized the sound. Someone was aiming at something, probably us. A chill ran down my spine. Walking aimlessly in the dark with the light made us easy targets. The glow of the torches moved as well. Multiple footsteps spread out around us in a semicircle. What could it be? Bandits, perhaps? Laura also noticed the anomaly and stopped walking. Then, she cast an anxious glance towards me. The glow of the torches faintly outlined figures, but due to the distance, their faces weren't clear. Likely, they couldn't see who we were either. What should we do? There was no need for us to act first. The situation unfolded because they made the first move. Who goes there? Are you humans? Answer. Laura was startled by the voice. Then, she answered loudly. Uncle Gould, it's me, Laura. Laura? The figures surrounding us seemed visibly taken aback. Then, with unabashed, casting aside their caution, they approached. Laura, you're back? A middle-aged man, called Uncle Gould, stood in front of Laura. Yeah, this person brought me here. Gould looked at me suspiciously. Since I didn't understand the situation well, I just nodded slightly. Gould placed a hand on Laura's shoulder. Sorry for scaring you. It's okay. But what's going on? Why is everyone out so late at night? Gould explained to Laura with a serious expression. It's about what happened after you left the village. Goblins from the vicinity attacked our village. Chapter 12, Enter the Goblin's Lair. Midday. The following day. There it is, pointed Garth, his sword hanging by his side. The gaping hole in the rocky hillside marked the entrance to a cave. At the mouth of the cave stood two goblins armed with crude spears. Goblins were relatively common monsters, standing about 150 centimeters tall, walking on two legs like humans. Their skin was brown, their heads large, with characteristic featureless yellow eyes, ears that stretched to their temples, and large mouths filled with sharp teeth. Despite having their own language system, their cultural level was low, and their attire was shabby. The sentries seemed drowsy, lacking concentration, likely due to their nocturnal nature. We had come to raid the goblin's lair. Currently, we were hidden in the bushes near the cave, observing the situation. "It's about time," murmured Laura beside me, her voice tinged with tension. "To understand how we got here, we need to go back to the events of last night." After resolving our suspicions, we were guided to Laura's village. Along the way, Laura and Garth had a conversation. "Uncle Garth, do goblins live in the nearby caves?" asked Laura. "Yeah. They wouldn't bother us if we stayed away from their territory, but things have changed in the past year, as Laura knows," replied Garth. "Yeah, there have been several incidents where villagers venturing outside were intimidated," recalled Laura. "Luckily, no one was harmed, but the day after Laura left the village, they crossed the line and attacked," Garth explained. "What happened?" inquired Laura. "They attacked the village," Garth stated plainly. "What?" exclaimed Laura. "Fortunately, there were only a few low-ranking goblins, so the young men managed to fend them off without casualties. It was close though," Garth recounted. "That's dangerous," Laura remarked. "So, the village has been on high alert. We strong ones have been keeping watch," Garth explained. "What about the goblins? Are you leaving them alone?" Laura asked. No, we can't. If they come at us seriously, we won't stand a chance. We've requested reinforcements from the Lord. We plan to strike first," Garth elaborated. Thus, a feast welcoming 5 soldiers dispatched by the Lord was held in the village. Garth, thoughtful as ever, said to me, "Sit on the edge of the feast and have some food. There's some delicious stuff here. Let's sneak off and eat something tasty." "Albert," Laura suggested enthusiastically, though not particularly interested. I couldn't leave Laura, who served as both the innkeeper and village guide. So, reluctantly, I followed her. At the feast, the 5 soldiers were chatting animatedly. "Ha ha ha. Leave the goblins to me, Lord Garcia. I'll slice them up with ease," boasted Garcia, drunk and loud. Surrounded by the village women, their strained expressions hinted that Garcia wasn't the most virtuous character. "Be grateful to the Lord. He's sent us elite troops even to this cursed village," Garcia continued, oblivious to the discomfort around him. Though Garcia, in his drunken state, seemed unaware, the villagers' faces betrayed their discomfort. "Cursed village," perhaps triggered by that word, I considered asking Laura beside me, but it felt awkward. Just then, Garcia, inebriated, turned his attention to us. "Hey, there's a pretty young lady over there. Come here and entertain me," he bellowed. At Garcia's words, Laura beside me trembled. "What? You don't like it?" "We're risking our lives for this village." "Is that how you show gratitude?" Garcia shouted. "This is too much." In a hushed voice, Laura assured me, "I'm fine." Laura sat beside Garcia in the tavern. "Indeed, youth is a blessing," Garcia remarked jovially, his breath reeking of ale. Laura, unsure how to respond, engaged in casual conversation as Garcia's gaze fell upon her hair. "Your hair is quite strikingly white. Could it be? Is the blood of witches running strong in you?" "Yes, it is likely so." "Then you must be a sorceress." "Yes. I possess a few magical abilities." "Excellent, excellent!" Garcia exclaimed excitedly, pounding the floor. "Strength in numbers is crucial." "You, join us in our goblin hunt." "Pardon? Now hold on." "She's still a child," a woman seated nearby interjected hastily. Garcia rudely brushed her aside. "Strength in magic knows no age, does it? Whether she's a child is irrelevant. You can wield a couple of offensive spells, can't you?" "Yes, it's for the village." "Will you come?" "Of course." Laura nodded without hesitation. Not because she was told to, but because I sensed her determination to fight for the village. So, I, too, made up my mind to lend a hand. I possess only one magical ability, but fortunately, it's an offensive spell. Surely it will prove useful in driving away goblins. And so, the next day around noon, I found myself joining the Goblin Extermination Squad. The squad consisted of 5 soldiers including Garcia, 20 villagers, Laura, and me. The soldiers were armed with long swords and armor, while the villagers had short swords and hand axes, if anything at all. Some wore nothing more than leather breastplates and gloves, barely offering any protection. They were practically defenseless. Sending villagers to the front lines might not be wise. "Hey, white-haired lass, shoot a magic arrow." "Understood. And prepare your bow." 4 villagers quietly readied their bows. "Coordinate your shots with the woman's magic." "Understood." Laura poised her wand. She took a deep breath and uttered the triggering words. Magic arrow, magic arrow. Instantly, 2 white arrows conjured by magic were released towards the lurking goblins. Chapter 13, Goblin Slayer Part 1. The arrows loosed by the villagers found their marks unerringly, piercing 2 goblins each on either side. Meanwhile, Laura's magical arrow struck true on the left, directly hitting the head, yet on the right, it merely grazed the shoulder. "Apologies," Laura exclaimed, her voice strained, while the goblin on the left collapsed, unconscious. Its counterpart only staggered. "What on earth are you doing?" Garcia's voice was biting as he glared at Laura. "Come on, shoot, shoot, shoot," Garcia hastily commanded. But the second shot from the bow missed the goblin retreating into the cave. "Incompetence!" Garcia spat. The goblins dove into the cave, shrieking loudly. I reached for a stone Laura had enchanted with illumination magic and hurled it into the cave. The stone illuminated the surroundings. I glimpsed over 10 goblins with crude swords and shields, roaring angrily as they charged forth. Garcia yelled, "Villagers, step forward! Hold back those goblins!" "What do you mean? Isn't that the job of you soldiers? Is that fancy armor just for show?" retorted a villager. "For efficient goblin extermination. It's better for us with greater attack power to provide support," Garcia argued. "Are you willing to endanger the villagers?" I hadn't expected much from Garcia, but his attitude was unbearable. I couldn't stand it any longer. I aimed my right hand towards the cave. Just as the lead goblin was about to emerge, I uttered the triggering words. Magic arrow. Boom. It sounded as if a boulder had crashed down a cliff, thundering upon the ground. The cacophony of goblin screams fell silent. Simultaneously, the arguing voices of Garcia and the villagers ceased. What just happened?" Garcia muttered, bewildered. Brave villagers cautiously approached the cave and peered inside. Then, they turned back to report. "They're dead." The goblins who were trying to come out, the villagers and soldiers erupted into cheers. "Wow, are you some kind of incredible mage?" Guard exclaimed, his expression filled with astonishment. "Not really," I shook my head, "just a man with 1 spell to his name. In a world where the number of spells you possess determines your excellence, I'm at the bottom of the barrel, quite embarrassing." I inquired of Guard, "Is that the end of it?" "No. There should be around 50 goblins in that settlement, and deeper in, there's a goblin lord." Goblin lord, a truly dangerous creature. While ordinary goblins could be defeated by confident villagers, a goblin lord could easily best skilled warriors if they let their guard down. It's so perilous that it was excluded from the target of this expedition. I rose to my feet and approached the entrance of the cave, extending my right hand. Mystic arrows, mystic arrows. With each of my words, a white arrow shot into the depths of the cave. Each shot echoed through the cavern floor with a resounding thud, thud. My mystic arrows ricocheted. They were designed to bounce off walls, finding soft flesh to pierce and explode upon contact. The depths of the cave were in turmoil. It felt somewhat pitiful, but there was no other way. Laura's village was suffering. We were humans, and they were causing harm to humans. We had to strike here. When humans encounter blood-sucking mosquitoes, they crush them. Ultimately, it wasn't much different. Mystic arrows, mystic arrows. They said there were about 50. With the possibility of some being duds, I fired around 100 arrows into the cave. Hopefully, this would be enough. I glanced back. "Think it's over?" I asked. Really?" Garcia and his 5 soldiers peeked in, confirming the eerie silence. Garcia confidently exclaimed, "All right, let's check on the goblins." "Villagers, come with us, all 5 of you, and the mage too," with a villager leading carrying a torch. Garcia and his men ventured deeper. As I moved to follow, a voice came from behind. "Impressive, Mr. Albert." It was Laura. "Nah, it's nothing much." I shook my head. Laura was more proficient in magic than me. Her rank was higher. It was truly embarrassing. Laura and I pressed on into the depths of the cave. "Wow, look at this. It's all goblin corpses," Garcia exclaimed cheerfully. As Garcia said, goblin bodies lay scattered around, torn apart. Occasionally, a barely alive goblin staggered, only for Garcia to mercilessly finish it off. "Ha ha, all my doing. All mine." "Ha ha." And so, we reached the innermost chamber of the cave. There, things seemed slightly different. It was a spacious hall, adorned with animal skulls and wooden furniture. It exuded a certain elegance, a goblin's version of refinement. Perhaps this was the Goblin Lord's room. Even the goblin corpses littered the floor. Garcia gleefully finished off any stragglers. Then, it happened. I noticed the pile of goblin corpses in the back trembling. Ugh! With a scream, the corpses were thrown aside, and something rose. A towering 2-meter figure, wielding a massive axe in its right hand. Garcia muttered in a dry voice, revealing its identity. There, Goblin Lord, Chapter 14. Goblin Slayer, Part 2. The Goblin Lord emerged, scattering the piled corpses of goblins. Undoubtedly, he had hidden behind his minions as flesh shields to evade my barrage of magic arrows. A true chieftain among goblins, he stood about 2 meters tall, wielding a massive battle axe in his right hand. He snarled, attempting to intimidate us with his glaring eyes. However, his left arm hung limp, powerless. Despite his steady approach, his movements lacked vigor, swaying unsteadily from side to side. It seemed he hadn't emerged unscathed, a wounded Goblin Lord, and Garcia, he couldn't contain his excitement. Excellent. This is it, my chance to be known as the Goblin Lord Slayer. Garcia readied his sword, closing the distance with the Goblin Lord. You all stay back. This is Garcia-sama's hunt. One-on-one. With a shout, Garcia lunged at the Goblin Lord. Surprisingly adept with the sword, he swiftly slashed at the Goblin Lord, his blade dancing left and right. Gaga! The Goblin Lord roared in anger, swinging his axe wildly, but amidst the sudden chaos, he couldn't land a solid blow due to confusion and substantial damage from the unexpected turn of events. Victory for Garcia-sama. With your head, Goblin Lord, I shall ascend. Easy work indeed. Garcia's sword plunged into the Goblin Lord's abdomen, yet, the Goblin Lord didn't fall. With a clang, the axe dropped to the floor. Then, with his thick, tree-like right arm, he seized Garcia's shoulder. What? You? Futile struggle. Just die. Fall already. Garcia twisted the sword in the wound, as if gouging it deeper. Still, the Goblin Lord refused to release Garcia. And then, boom! A resounding noise echoed through the hall. The Goblin Lord's headbutt struck Garcia's head squarely. Ark! Those were Garcia's final words. His head crumpled against the armor, compressed as if it had been struck by a heavy object, swaying and collapsing backward. The excited Goblin Lord let out a victorious roar. He pulled out the sword lodged in his belly, paying no mind to the flowing blood. Turning his gaze toward us, his eyes spoke of resignation to death. They were eyes prepared to take us all down with him. Eek! The soldiers, overwhelmed by his gaze, screamed and stepped back. With a triumphant roar, the Goblin Lord charged at the soldiers. They swung their swords in defense, but the strength difference was overwhelming. Though none of the 4 soldiers died, they were all easily knocked to the ground. The Goblin Lord raised the sword he had taken from Garcia. Its cruel blade descended upon an unfortunate soldier's head. Magic arrow. Immediately, the Goblin Lord's head exploded. I had been waiting for this moment. The soldiers standing in front of the Goblin Lord had been obstructing my aim. I could have aimed regardless, but it would be troublesome if they moved and got hit. The sword slipped from the Goblin Lord's hand as his head rolled off. With a clang, it hit the ground, followed by the swaying of his massive body, collapsing with a loud thud. Phew. It's over, isn't it? Goblin Lord, taken down in one shot. Incredible. The soldiers' murmurs reached my ears. The night saw another festivity unfold within the village. A celebration spurred by the annihilation of the goblins. Apart from the villagers, I was the sole attendee. The surviving soldiers hastily retrieved Garcia's remains and departed, evidently feeling uneasy lingering any longer. Despite my inclination to decline due to my natural reserve, who will lead the festivities without our hero? Yes, indeed. You must join us. I found myself reluctantly compelled to participate, urged on by their insistence. They all seemed to have misconceptions. I, a man of little value, capable only of employing magic arrows, despite my reserved nature, it appeared that everyone held a sense of gratitude, perhaps even a semblance of respect towards me, as they warmly engaged with me. In such jovial gatherings, even I couldn't help but find some enjoyment. The village chief seated himself beside me, striking up conversation with an unusual fervor. Truly remarkable. You are. I'll be counting on you at the academy as well. This girl, while not quite on your level, possesses great potential. Me? Oh, no, I couldn't possibly. I pale in comparison to you, Albert. The village chief chuckled heartily as Laura, seated on the opposite side, vigorously shook her head in disagreement. I interjected, no, no, Laura surpasses me in every aspect. I, on the other hand, am far from her league. Nonsense, the chief roared with laughter. But humility is a virtue. I like that. With that, he jovially clapped me on the shoulder. I wasn't exactly being modest, though. The village chief then turned to address someone else with a tilt of his head. I'm quite impressed. Ridias, talented and modest. A fine young man. What do you think about furthering this discussion? Yes. With that, the individual he addressed murmured an apology and moved to stand before me. At the sight of this person, Laura, seated beside me, exclaimed, "Ah, father, it seems my daughter has been in your care." The man before me acknowledged, bowing his head. Laura's father. Indeed, there was a resemblance in the facial features, though his hair was grey. Having stayed at the chief's residence yesterday, this was my first encounter with Laura's father. I've heard about your exploits from Gold. Quite the heroics, I hear. It seems luck was on my side. The chief has a keen eye for people. He speaks highly of you. Though we've just met, I believe you're a trustworthy individual. Is that so? What exactly is he trying to say? The thread of conversation eludes me. Judging from his demeanor, he seems to be leading up to something. Finally, Laura's further broached the subject. So, Albert. Yes? I've come to ask for a favor regarding my daughter. Yes, we've discussed supporting each other as classmates. No, no, no. With a shake of his head, Laura's further corrected me. Not in that sense. Not in what sense? That's right. What I mean is, after a moment's pause, Laura's father continued, I want you to marry Laura. What? Dad, wait. What are you saying? Chapter 15. Would you take my daughter as your bride? Too sudden. Recap from the previous chapter. Laura's father asked if I would take his daughter as my bride. What? Wait, hold on, father. What are you saying? It was Laura who vehemently protested in disbelief, leaving me dumbfounded. Further rested his chin on his hand, tilting his head. I merely asked if you would take her as your bride. You say it like it's the most natural thing, but I don't understand what you mean. Laura interjected, visibly perplexed. Desperately, Laura looked at me, her expression pleading. Albert, I'm sorry, it seems my father is intoxicated. It's a joke. Just a joke. Please don't take offense. I mumbled, struggling to keep up with the situation. Laura's father shook his head. Laura, I'm serious. You're ruining the joke, father. Albert is a remarkable man. It's a parent's duty to ask such a person to take their daughter. Or do you perhaps dislike Albert? Further countered. No, I don't dislike him, but I respect him. But that's beside the point. It's unfair, father. Laura protested. What about you, Albert? Well, I continued to be perplexed by the conversation. Incidentally, Laura's father's proposal wasn't entirely outlandish. In this world, it's not as liberal in matters of love. Marriage often involves families, and it's not uncommon for parents to arrange marriages. Until I was expelled from my own family, I thought marriage meant being wed to some aristocratic lady of their choosing, a common belief. In such a world, selling off one's daughter to a man with prospects is indeed a parental duty. Though there's hardly any prospect for me, it's quite a stretch. Being with someone like me would only bring Laura unhappiness. There's no choice but to refuse. Isn't this all a bit hasty? There's a sequence of events to consider, I interjected. If we follow the sequence, then there shouldn't be a problem, right? Further responded energetically, quite the spirited individual. What should I say? Perplexed, I glanced at Laura. She blushed deeply, clearly at a loss. As Laura seems to be in a quandary, I began, but Laura's further waved his hand. I understand that it's sudden. Marriage connects families, but the feelings of the individuals involved are crucial too. Fortunately, you two will be studying together at the academy. Can't you think it over during that time? With this concession, outright refusal seems inappropriate for now. Very well, I replied, though my heart wasn't in it. Graduating from the academy would take at least 3 years. By then, this agreement would likely have evaporated into thin air. There came a moment when I found myself in a similar predicament. It seemed that Laura's father was intent on a swift resolution. Currently, I find myself lodging in Laura's room, not her house, mind you, but her actual room. Her room. Sorry. For the cramped quarters. Oh, no. It's fine, really. Laura's face flushed crimson, the atmosphere thick with discomfort. Now, you might wonder how this situation came to be. I had intended to stay at the village chief's house for the night. After the feast concluded, as I was about to return to my assigned room, the chief approached me. Albert, my apologies, but we're short on rooms tonight. Is that so? Yes, indeed. We've had to allocate yesterday's room to another guest. Would you mind staying at another house? As I walked down the corridor, there seemed to be several vacant rooms. I understand. Which house should I go to? Yes, Lydia's, Laura's father's house. He offered to accommodate you. And so, I found myself heading to Laura's house, and there, Laura's father made a request of me. Would you stay in my daughter's room? And that's how I ended up in the same room as Laura. The air was thick with awkwardness. All because of that marry my daughter remark. If it weren't for that, I could have behaved more normally. So, I made a suggestion. Laura? Yes? Let's sleep. I'm exhausted. Various reasons. Yes, I think that's best too. Laura, speaking rapidly, agreed with my suggestion. We turned off the lights and lay down. For clarification, Laura slept in her own bed as usual, while I took only the futon on the floor. Despite her insistence that I should take the bed since I was a guest, I declined. I was indeed tired. Having ventured into the goblin's cave and attended an unfamiliar banquet, I thought I'd fall asleep quickly, but I couldn't. A strange consciousness clung to my mind, keeping sleep at bay. Wanting Laura to be my wife. Those words wouldn't leave my head. It seemed Laura was wrestling with the same thoughts, as I could hear her tossing and turning in her bed. Albert. What is it? About what my father said today. Please don't take it too seriously. I'm really not someone who's suitable for you. It's all right. I'm not particularly bothered by it. Really? Yeah. After a moment of silence, Laura spoke again. I don't know what will become of us, Albert. But, I'd like us to be friends, first. Me too. Of course, I had no objections to that kind of relationship. However, there was something that concerned me a little. I'll say this up front. Don't hold back with me, alright? I'm already 26. There's a 10-year gap between me and Laura, and she'll surely make plenty of friends her own age. When that happens, don't hesitate to join their circle. Understand? Oh, all right. Laura responded in agreement. For some reason, her voice held a tinge of sadness. It's all right. I probably won't be able to make any friends anyway. There's no way that's true, right? Laura had a good personality. Though our acquaintance was brief, I could assert that much. So why couldn't she make friends? After some thought, Laura spoke decisively. Do you know about the Witch of Calamity? Chapter 16. The Witch of Calamity. Do you know about the Witch of Calamity? Laura abruptly brought up the topic one night when it was just the two of us. Of course, I was familiar with it. For anyone aspiring to become a magician, the names of prominent figures in magical history were deeply ingrained. The Witch of Calamity. Her nickname was as significant as that of Magnus, also known as 1000 for his mastery over 1,000 spells. With striking white hair and red eyes, she wielded around 500 spells. Although the number seemed meager for a magician of historical significance, it was because she focused solely on offensive magic. In terms of offensive spells alone, it seemed she surpassed Magnus in quantity. She was indeed a great figure, but, while Magnus's name shone brightly in magical history, hers lay tarnished on the ground, spoken of as a stain on all magicians. She once challenged the kingdom with her overwhelming power. The kingdom emerged victorious after paying a great price, but it took many years for the devastated land to regain its vitality. It was then that I realized, Laura's hair was pure white, a very rare color, just like the Witch of Calamity. If you're talking about the Witch of Calamity, then yes, I do. That was my response. Then Laura, from the darkness on the other side, posed a new question. Do you remember the soldiers calling this place the Cursed Village last night? I do. Well, that's because this village was founded by descendants of the Witch of Calamity. I see. That explains it. So that's why it's called the Cursed Village. Although the rampage of the Witch of Calamity is a tale from the distant past, I've heard it countless times as a fairy tale in my childhood. For those living in this country, the Witch of Calamity is synonymous with evil. I had noticed that many villagers had whitish hair, but now it made sense. In this village, occasionally, children with pure white hair, indicating a strong connection to the bloodline of the Witch of Calamity, are born. That's you, Laura. Yes. Although my eyes are blue, Laura's voice chuckled softly. I am a person of the cursed lineage in the cursed village. That's why I don't think I can make friends at the academy. It's rather perplexing tale. Laura is still Laura. You're not the Witch of Calamity. Yes, I think so too. It's a strange story, isn't it? Don't worry too much about it. There aren't people nowadays who discriminate over such things. It's a story from my childhood. When my parents realized I had a talent for magic, they sent me to a magic academy in a nearby town. I tried hard to make friends by talking to them, but I was avoided and told things like witch, you'll be killed. Laura revealed with a sorrowful tone. It's because of my conspicuous appearance. There's always someone who notices my origins, and it inevitably leaks out. There are many nobles at the Magic Academy. Such information would undoubtedly circulate more. Those who adhere to the practice of discriminating based on family background are considered conventional. What if you dyed your hair? Nobody would know, right? If I were just living a normal life, that might be okay. But strangely, this peculiar hair seems to have a connection to magic, and if I dyed it, the effectiveness of magic would weaken. So, Laura emphasized her words. Once I decided to live as a magician, I couldn't escape from this hair. Why do you go to such lengths to attend a magic academy if it causes you such anguish? I want the treatment of the village to improve even a little. Treatment of the village? This village hasn't received the best treatment from the kingdom due to its origins. Despite some improvement over the years, it's thanks to villagers with the blood of past witches, who have contributed as magicians to the nation and gained recognition. Laura continued with a resolute voice. I want to hone my abilities for the sake of everyone in the village. That's what I believe. She added, Laura is the hope of the village. Someone remarked, it's not really that significant. The villagers tell me I don't have to push myself, that I can live a normal life. It's because they're so kind that I want to do my best in my own way. Laura expressed with determination. A glimpse into the complexity of Laura emerged. While she had been perceived as a kind and serious girl, she struggled with her own convictions, yet endeavored to move forward earnestly. Laura's trembling voice echoed from the darkness. Even though I'm like this, will you still be my friend? Rejection, 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 rejection. Laura must have experienced nothing but that outside the village. It was needless to ponder the courage it took for her to utter those words. Therefore, the answer was already decided. Would the me from the past have been able to say it? The me from 10 years ago, attending the Academy of Magic, still believing in my own talents, living in the privileged world of nobility, but I know the pain of not enduring my own weaknesses, the sorrow of being branded as worthless. In front of Laura, who had poured out everything to me, there was only one word I should say. Of course, I will always, forever be your friend. I promise. No matter what. The room fell silent. The sound of Laura sniffing softly could be heard. Thank you so much, Albert. I'm really glad to have met you. After a long silence, Laura spoke again. I talked a bit too much, didn't I? Shall we sleep? Yeah. Good night, Laura. Good night, Albert. And so, my long day came to an end. The next morning, I decided to return home. Somehow, I had been hailed as a hero of the village and was bid farewell by all the villagers. Come back anytime, the village chief said as much. Laura's further approached me. Just to confirm one last time, there really wasn't any mistake last night? Dad, you're being so persistent. I already said there wasn't anything, Laura exclaimed. Her face flushed. Since waking up, Laura had been repeatedly questioned by her father if there were any mistakes. Quite the pressure. There wasn't anything, I replied with a smile. Because Laura and I are friends. There's no need for that sort of thing. Yes, we're friends. Laura smiled back at me. She was going to stay in the village and prepare for enrollment. It seemed she would be heading to the capital for the entrance ceremony. I waved goodbye to Laura. Then, I'll see you at the academy next time. And then, raising my right hand into the air, I uttered my usual phrase, Magic Arrow. I soared into the azure sky. Soon, my second life at the Academy of Magic would begin. Title: The Apprentice Mage, Mastering Magic Arrows to the Limit, the tale of an exiled noble student, striving without abandon to reach greatness. Author, Pemopemosan. Zephyr notes, greetings, everyone. Zephyr here, presenting another intriguing light novel found on code.socitu.com. I stumbled upon this gem and found it captivating and enjoyable. Hope you all feel the same. Synopsis: Albert, having learned the basic magic skill of Magic Arrow at a young age, was expected to have a bright future. However, he couldn't grasp any other magic. His noble father, who valued appearances, exiled Albert as a failure. Albert spent 10 years in the given house, reading only Magic Arrow spellbooks. Those days gradually pushed his magic to its limits. When Laura lamented about not making it to the exam on time, Albert said to her, "I'll take you there with my Magic Arrow." How with a ranged attack magic of 50 meters. It's the tale of a man who believes his Magic Arrow is slightly stronger than others, overcoming hardships with his broken magic and eventually rising to become the greatest mage. Volume 02, Enrollment, the beginning of the road to becoming a hero. Chapter 01. The Enrollment Ceremony at the Royal Academy of Magic. The enrollment ceremony. Upon the stage of the auditorium stood the venerable headmaster. Exuding an air of benevolence, he delivered his congratulatory speech with a gentle demeanor. To all the talented students aspiring to become sorcerers, I commend you for choosing to enroll in this esteemed institution, the Royal Academy of Magic. The faculty and I extend our heartfelt blessings and welcome to each of you. We eagerly anticipate the future where you, our students, will leave indelible marks upon the kingdom through your learnings here. Strive diligently, and thus, we became students of the academy. After the ceremony concluded, we made our way to the classrooms. By some stroke of fate, Laura and I found ourselves in the same class. A young man with a short, stubbled beard stood before the teacher's desk. "I am your instructor, Mr. Philbus. It's a pleasure to meet you all for the next year," he declared. Philbus, while urging us to study, shared anecdotes of his own student days, admitting to coasting through with little effort, much to the amusement of his students. "After all, Carlyle, the court magician, was a classmate of mine." "Doesn't exactly inspire one to strive, does it?" he chuckled. His revelation about being classmates with Carlyle sparked admiration among the students. Carlyle, the court magician, renowned for his genius and popularity. Philbus, with his easygoing nature, seemed poised to become a popular instructor among the students. As the conversation paused, Philbus suddenly remembered something and continued. "Oh, yes, almost forgot," he said, rummaging through his pockets. He produced a small object and rolled it onto the teacher's desk. Taking one into his hand, Philbus held it up for us to see. "It may be difficult to discern, but this is the school emblem," he explained. Engraved upon its surface was the crest of the Royal Academy of Magic. "You haven't received your emblems yet. Interested in acquiring one? My apologies. These emblems aren't given to just anyone," Philbus said, waiting for everyone's attention before continuing. "These are bestowed only upon students who achieve a certain level of proficiency in their exams. Initially, you'll receive this stone emblem. You must attain it by the end of the year." "And what happens if we fail to attain it?" one student inquired. "Expulsion," Philbus replied with a smile, causing a stir among the students. I remained unfazed, unmoved. I knew because nothing had changed since my time. The students may be perturbed, but there was no need for excessive vigilance. Simply living the life of a student, achieving average growth, would suffice. A featuring I couldn't manage 10 years ago. I never received the emblem. I fled from the academy, crushed by the pressure and disappointment in myself as I faced the final year exams. The emblem I couldn't obtain then. Could I obtain it now? If I did, how would I feel? I desire it. That's what I thought. As Philbus relinquished the stone emblem, he picked up another emblem. "Hey, don't fret over something as trivial as a stone. Anyone can get one. After the stone comes iron. Without it, you'll be expelled in 2 years. Stay sharp." Then, Philbus lifted a gleaming emblem. "And finally, the last milestone is silver. If you fail to achieve it by the end of 3 years, you won't graduate from the academy. So, muster your spirits." "But that's not the end of it," he added, chuckling as he lifted 2 emblems in his other hand. "Graduating with silver is commendable, but those who excel further receive gold and even mithril. But let me tell you, Surpassing gold is no easy feat. It's a lifelong accolade. So, give it your all, teacher. A student raised their hand. What is it, sir? Were you also a graduate of the academy? What was the school emblem? It was nothing but plain silver. Is that a problem? With those words, the classroom erupted in chatter. What about our fellow alum, Sir Carlyle? By the end of the second year, he was already mithril. At that moment, the classroom fell silent. With just those words, they understood the insurmountable difference in abilities that lay between mediocrity and genius. Professor Filbus waved his hand. Well, he's a class apart. Don't compare. He's off the charts. For now, just aim to surpass me. Starting from scratch? Yeah, exactly. Hey, are you mocking ordinary? The students chuckled. A relaxed atmosphere filled the classroom. Well, anyway, first, aim for the emblem of stone. Until then, you're students here but not truly of here. Get it? Hurry up and make us recognize you, you half-baked bunch. Filbus smirked defiantly and said, That's all for today. Dismissed. Before leaving, the students stood up, preparing to leave. As I sluggishly began to gather my belongings, Laura called out to me, Alberto-san, it's great to be in the same class with you. Let's aim for the emblem of stone together. Let's do our best. Yeah, that sounds good. The emblem of stone. What I couldn't achieve all those years ago. As the homeroom teacher just said, until we obtain it, we're students here but not truly of here. That meaning, 10 years ago, I couldn't even become a full-fledged student, only here, in this academy. That's why I strongly swore that this time, I would achieve it. The meaning of returning here after 10 long years, I'll surely understand when I finally accomplish it. Smiling at Laura, I said, yeah, let's do our best. Volume 02 Chapter 02, Albert's past friend, Hulin. A month had swiftly passed since enrollment. Presently, Laura and I found ourselves sharing lunch in the cafeteria, a routine unchanged since the day we began. As anticipated, we hadn't managed to forge any companionship with our peers. Of course, much of it was due to my age. A 26-year-old amidst a classroom with an average age of 15 is undeniably incongruous. I could sense my classmates' discomfort, which in turn evoked a sense of remorse within me. And then there was Laura's background. As she had feared, her true identity had already become public knowledge, causing her fellow students to keep their distance. Thus, we inevitably gravitated towards each other. We were familiar with each other, and our personalities meshed well. I couldn't complain, really. It's quite a challenge, I muttered. What is? Laura inquired. Friendship. Albert, did you also desire friends? No, it doesn't matter to me, but it does to Laura. He. Laura chuckled softly. I told you, it's impossible, she said. That's true, but, I trailed off. Laura was a kind soul. Ideally, I wished for her to experience a normal, enjoyable student life rather than spending time with a gloomy individual 10 years her senior. It's okay. I thought I wouldn't make any friends, but Albert, you're here, Laura exclaimed. If you're okay with me, I responded. I want you, Albert. Laura smiled brightly. That's right, Albert. You were 15 once, weren't you? She asked. Yes, at least I wasn't 26 when I was born, I quipped. Did you have friends during your school days? Friends, huh? I sifted through the distant pages of memory. During my school days, when I had just enrolled in the academy, I had many friends. Being the son of a count enriched my circle of acquaintances. However, it was superficial. Once they discovered that I, as a magician, was nothing but mediocre, and realized that my competent younger brother was the promising heir, everyone began to distance themselves from me. 2 friends remained loyal till the end. On the eve of the final exam, they encouraged me. Don't worry. I know you've been working hard. Persistence always pays off, you know. One was a male student, Lugard, a young nobleman aspiring to become a magic knight. Thanks to his lifelong practice of swordsmanship since childhood, he was physically 2 sizes larger than me. Yeah, you'll be fine for sure. Albert, you can do it this time. Have confidence. The other was a female student, Hulin, a petite woman with curly hair resembling natural spirals, and oversized glasses that seemed almost ready to slip off her face. The 2 of them never abandoned me until the very end. Those 2, who believed in me, I betrayed their trust and ran away. A pang of pain surged through my chest. I sighed deeply. Oh, I am sorry, was it wrong to ask? No. It's okay. I had two friends. As I used the word friends, I pondered, was I entitled to call them friends? Did I possess the right to do so? And, do they still consider me their friend? Just then, a voice interrupted. Oh, there you are. You're Laura, right? A woman interjected, since she was facing Laura across from me. I couldn't get a good look at her, but judging by her attire, she seemed to be a staff member. She was a petite woman with distinct natural curls. Yes, that's me. How can I help you? Laura responded. We need you for the water quality survey starting tomorrow, the woman exclaimed. Volume 02 Chapter 03, Albert's past. His friend, Lugard, Albert's old friend, Hulin, froze as he locked eyes with me. In turn, I found myself locked in a gaze with Hulin, my old friend. The sudden reunion after a decade naturally stole our attention. Do you two know each other? Laura, who felt left out, timidly inquired. Yeah, replied Hulin. Albert and I were classmates back in. Wait a moment, I interjected. My apologies, Laura. Could you excuse us for a moment? We'll talk about it sometime, I said. Yes, of course. I'll just go then. Laura hastily exited the dining hall. I felt guilty for leaving Laura out, but I still couldn't make up my mind. Sharing about my relationship with Hulin meant revealing my past as a student at the academy. My first attempt at academia, which ended in failure. It was something I hadn't fully come to terms with. It was a story that needed to be told someday. Laura had shared her own background with me. I had a responsibility to reciprocate, but today wasn't the day for it. It wasn't a tale I wanted to drop casually in the midst of an unexpected encounter. Hulin took Laura's vacant seat. It's been a while, Albert, he said. Yeah, I never thought we'd meet here, I replied. It's not that surprising, is it? Many academy alumni end up in the same line of work, he remarked. Then, silence fell between us. Hulin changed the subject. So, you're back at the academy? He asked. Yeah. It's complicated, I replied vaguely. Haven't told Laura about it? About returning to school? He probed. No, I haven't. It's not something I'm proud to talk about, I admitted. I see, Hulin nodded. All right, I won't bring it up. Nor will I mention it to the school. There are still teachers who've been there since 10 years ago. I wonder if any of them have noticed, he mused. Thank you, I said, but I know about the effort you put in, Albert. It's not something to be ashamed of. He reassured me. I did run away, though. That's a fact. I shook my head. Apologies for that. 10 years ago, I couldn't live up to your expectations, I confessed. It's okay. I'm just glad to see you haven't given up on magic. Hulin smiled warmly and handed me an envelope from the table. Oh right. I almost forgot. Here, Albert, you're joining us for the water quality survey, he said. Without even checking if I'm available. I raised an eyebrow. Yeah. It's mandatory, he grinned, then his expression turned serious. I'm not joking, though, he lowered his voice. What do you mean? I asked. Because it's you, Albert. I'll tell you this, but keep it under wraps, okay? Hulin leaned in, pointing upwards. Laura was just a slip up in the list, but you, Albert, you were added last minute. It's a direct order from the top. They want you there at all costs, he revealed. Up? This is the Royal Academy of Magic, meaning it's an order from the nation. Fiorin shook her head. I don't know more than that. Did you do something to catch the nation's eye, Albert? I wonder. I've always tried to live honorably and righteously. It was a strange story. Me, a mediocre student, being included in an elite investigative team. And all under the orders of the nation. I couldn't quite grasp it. I couldn't think of anything I had done to warrant this. Well, whatever. Fiorin chuckled softly. Well, it's an opportunity, isn't it? Seize it and soar high. I'll do my best. I set the documents aside. By the way, how is Lugard? I mentioned the name of another friend. While my connection with Lugard had been severed, I hoped to still be linked with Fiorin. Fiorin's expression turned sad as she shook her head. He's no longer with us. No longer? Lugard passed away 5 years ago. Huh? Lugard? Dead? Why? He became a magic knight as he hoped. He had talent and made significant achievements. He was the pride of our class. But, during a mission, he never returned. I couldn't imagine it at all. Lugard, with his sturdy frame. In my mind, Lugard existed at the opposite end of death. And yet, Lugard. At only 21 years old. Is that so? Yes. You never know what life will bring. Who would have thought such misfortune would befall Lugard? Furin sighed heavily. Albert, take care. I'm a bit worried about this current situation. You're right. I'll be cautious. Within the dimly lit temple, an imposing altar stood adorned by a roaring blaze of jet-black flames. Before this inferno stood a solitary figure, a man deeply engrossed in the recitation of incantations. With each uttered word, the black flame surged in intensity, as if consuming the very essence of his incantations. With a sigh of relief, the man concluded his chants, stepping back from the flames. Clad in a black robe intricately embroidered with threads of gold and silver, his face remained obscured, half concealed by a mask. Suddenly, a soft footfall echoed behind him, heralding the arrival of another presence. Your dedication is unwavering, as always, remarked a diminutive elderly figure, shrouded in a hood that enveloped his entire head. Time draws near, the elderly figure continued. The era of our dark shall soon emerge from the shadows. There is no luxury of idleness. Your words are appreciated, replied the man respectfully. Lord Lugard, the elderly figure addressed him formally. Are you prepared to shroud the kingdom in darkness, the land where you were raised? Do not address me by that name. It is one I have discarded, the man retorted. As for readiness, it was forged within me 5 years past. My apologies for testing your resolve, the elder conceded, bowing his head. Forgive me, Prince of Darkness. With solemn agreement, they intoned together, to the age of darkness once more. As Lugard reciprocated the acknowledgement, he turned and strode deeper into the recesses of the structure. Yet, amid the flickering shadows, memories of 2 friends from his student days surfaced unbidden in his mind, consumed by the burgeoning flames of darkness. Though it was a poignant sight, Lugard felt nothing. Volume 02 Chapter 04, Expedition to Investigate Water Quality. Wow, it's massive. The other side seems distant, doesn't it? Before Laura and me stretched a lake so vast that one could easily mistake it for the sea. The next day, we made our way to Lake Bairun. It was a large lake located a little distance away from the capital. In this world, there are teleportation arrays, devices connecting various points. So, we teleported as close as possible to the lake from the capital and then proceeded on foot. It boasted as one of the largest lakes in the kingdom, though praised for its crystal-clear surface, akin to pouring melted gemstones. Today it looked rather murky. It's not as pristine as they say. Yeah. You're right, the lake appeared gloomy, as if mixed with a considerable amount of ink. All right, everyone, the voice belonged to Falin, who supervised the students. This is Lake Bairun. Initially, it was an incredibly beautiful lake, but over the past 6 months, pollution has progressed, resulting in its current state. Teacher, why did it get polluted? A male student inquired. That's a good question. The answer is, we don't know. That's precisely why we're here for an investigation. So, are we going to conduct the investigation? That's for them. Falin gestured towards a group standing at a distance. The real investigation team sent by the academy will handle that. Some of you students will assist them later. I see. So, within this select group, there are further elites. Upon hearing Falin's words, the students' expressions changed. You will all practice purification. Purification, magic used for purifying water. This isn't good. Laura tilted her head at my mutterings. What's wrong? I can't use purification. Falin continued speaking. If it's a large amount of contaminated water, it's perfect. Purify away to your heart's content. Please, get plenty of practice here. After setting up the tents we brought, we began water purification training in the lake. I touched the lake and uttered the triggering word. Purification. The lake remained undisturbed, as if nothing had happened. Well, I knew this would be the case. Next to me, Laura activated the magic in the same manner. Purification. And what do you know? The water within several meters around Laura gradually transformed into a clear, beautiful color. Impressive. Of course, it quickly returned to its tainted hue, swallowed by the surrounding polluted water. Recalling classmates from 10 years ago, few students could purify such a large volume of water in an instant. Indeed, Laura possessed extraordinary talent. Well done. Oh no, there are others who are better. Laura's face shifted. Her gaze fell upon a male student. He had smooth, blue hair and a well-defined face, He dipped his hand into the lake and spoke. Purification. Immediately afterward, over a range exceeding 10 meters, the lake water turned into pure water. A chorus of admiration erupted from the surrounding students. Incredible. Yes, that's Brain Milch's Sama, the genius mage who served as the representative of the new students at the entrance ceremony. He's expected to be the next talent after Lord Carlisle at the academy. I see. Being the representative of the new students at the entrance ceremony, meaning he was the top scorer. If he already possessed such magical prowess as a first-year student, his achievements were undoubtedly not mere flukes. However, something else caught my attention more than his abilities. Milches? Yes, he's the son of the Milches Marquis family. Ah, no wonder the name sounded familiar. Well, I used to be a noble myself. To master magic at 80 at that age, to be recognized as a full-fledged mage, one needed to reach 100. Usually, it took years of dedicated training for adults to achieve such a level. So, to reach 80 at that young age was quite remarkable. I'm still only 20. I must persevere. I may be just one person. Well, there's no use rushing. I've made up my mind this time. I'll forge my own path. Each person has their own journey. Oh, there's Professor Fullin. As Laura spoke, Fullin approached Brain. Though I couldn't discern their conversation, the surrounding students erupted into chatter. With a nod from Brain, Fullin led him towards the true investigation team. He must have been chosen, selected as an elite among the chosen few. Indeed, Brain Sama is exceptional. Laura nodded in agreement. In this manner, Fullin escorted several other noticed students towards the investigation team. The remaining students murmured restlessly about their selection, or lack thereof. It didn't concern or interest me. All I should ponder is whether magic arrows can truly purify water. Can it be done? And if so, how? Only magic arrows filled my mind. Then it happened. Oh, honestly, such incompetence. To disgrace the esteemed feudal family's Meissonier like this. Young teachers these days. A woman's shrill voice echoed. Distracted, I turned my gaze to find a young female student. Her dull blonde hair and piercing eyes exuded strength. Absolutely scandalous. Not selecting Meissonier Sama is unfathomable. Her entourage murmured in agreement. Meissonier Fidel, the Earl's daughter. I know this woman, though not fondly. Meissonier's voice pierced the air deliberately. Conducting an investigation is utterly pointless. Just ask the water spirits residing here. But wouldn't we need to summon the water spirits? Just do it, won't you? I can, you know. Meissonier spoke with a proud air. Summoning spirits. It's no simple magic. It likely carries at least a moderate level of difficulty. Not something students can easily wield. Meissonier declared loudly. See? I'll even show you all. Witness the summoning prowess of Meissonier Sama. Volume 02 Chapter 05, The Rampaging Spirit. With spirits soaring high, Meissonier declared her summoning. But there was someone who dared to interject. Excuse me. It was Laura. Before anyone knew it, Laura had moved close to Meissonier. I think it's best to stop. Meissonier looked at Laura with a gaze as if she were looking at something filthy. Do you mind not speaking to me like that? Yet, Laura stood her ground. I believe it's dangerous. I sense an anomaly in the spiritual energy from this lake. Summoning such an unstable spirit. Anomaly? I don't sense anything like that. And what's wrong with being unstable? It's a showcase of a sorcerer's skill to control spirits, isn't it? But at that moment, Meissonier's entourage stepped in front of Laura. Don't you dare come near Meissonier Sama. You're just a nuisance. Laura let out a soft whimper and stepped back. Laura. You did well. My knowledge of Meissonier was mainly due to Laura's involvement. Meissonier had collided with Laura, who was walking down the hallway, after bursting out of the classroom. Ouch. To Laura's scowl, Meissonier snapped. Watch where you're going. You, from the cursed village, dare touch me. Ugh. It's disgusting. Meissonier vigorously brushed off the shoulder she had collided with using the handkerchief she pulled out. Seeing Laura looking dejected as Meissonier walked away. She's a terrible person. As Laura's friend, I never thought highly of Meissonier. Knowing about that exchange, I wanted to commend Laura's courage and kindness for enduring Meissonier's negativity and worrying about her. Normally, a teacher should intervene in such arbitrary behavior, but Fullin was away with the investigation team and unavailable. Mycenae began chanting her magic. With each word she uttered, the surface of the lake quietly stirred, sending ripples outward. When those ripples multiplied and overlapped, Mycenae cast her spell. "Come forth, spirit of water." "Call spirit." The lake trembled. Immediately after, a column of water gushed up about 10 meters from the shore. After the water column vanished, there stood a woman. A horse stood on the lake, and atop it sat a beautiful woman. Long, straight hair reaching down to her chest. Features as if chiseled from stone. Clad in a long dress, she sat sideways on the horse. The woman was breathtakingly beautiful, but it was abnormal because everything about her, the horse, even the clothes they wore, was composed of water. The woman gazed at Mycenae. "Did you summon me?" "Yes, I, the water sorceress Mycenae, did." With a chuckle, Mycenae placed her hand on her chest. "Listen to me, spirit of water. What do you seek?" the horse asked. The horse began to move slowly, as if the lake's surface were solid ground. At that moment, I noticed something peculiar. The vast amount of water composing the water spirit, it was truly beautiful, but a single dark spot appeared on its cheek. "What's that?" With each step the horse took, the black spot increased, like cracks. The water spirit stopped at the water's edge. "Let's talk." The water spirit's voice sounded somewhat strained. Ignoring this, Mycenae continued speaking. "Why is this lake polluted? Explain, you discard. What displeases you? Those dark and unpleasant things, and pollute us. What lurks in darkness, that which disturbs the soul?" The spirit of water remained silent, its response elusive. Its form trembled, akin to a horse irritated, legs shifting restlessly. Black stains now marred its once pristine body, conspicuous to all observers. "Is something amiss with it?" A murmur rippled through the surrounding students. Mycenae, undoubtedly, narrowed her gaze towards the speaker. "What? Surely it cannot be a failure. Given the darkness of the water, a dark spirit is to be expected." With a sharp turn towards the spirit of water, Mycenae extended her right hand, demanding compliance. "Speak. Answer me. What is it that lurks in darkness, causing discomfort?" Mycenae's dominance over the water spirit intensified. In a voice akin to a sigh, the spirit of water responded, "Darkness." "Darkness? What do you mean?" The spirit of water averted its gaze. After several tremors, it raised its head. Its right eye had turned pitch black. "Darkness is." Before it could finish, the spirit of water's body convulsed, uttering incomprehensible phrases. Its body, marked with black stains, rapidly disintegrated. Gasping, Mycenae recoiled, her face contorted in shock. "This is absurd. What is happening?" The onlookers erupted in panicked screams. Amidst chaotic gibberish, the body of the water spirit disintegrated, limbs falling, dress dissolving, until it transformed into water, returning to the lake. As the last fragment dissolved into water, only the quiet, murky lake remained. What was that?" Mycenae spat out in anger. That night, remnants of the water spirit lay at the bottom of the lake. "If I do not," the will of the water spirit responded. "I hear a calling." Gathering the surrounding water, the spirit began reconstructing its form. Mycenae's summoning still lingered in the consciousness of the water spirit, compelling it with residual magical obligations. At the lake's bottom, a maiden astride a horse reappeared, her body tinted in dark hues, now a half-human, half-horse entity. "Shall we proceed, my master?" The water spirit spread its arms wide. Immediately, humanoid mud figures emerged from the lake bed. "This time, let us venture into this splendid lake." "Surely, my master will approve." A twisted smile, reflecting imbalance and madness, graced its lips. The water spirit, long consumed by darkness, was no longer sane. With a legion of mud figures in tow, the water spirit embarked on its advance. Volume 02 Chapter 06, The Rampaging Spirit, Assault. In the dead of night, students of the academy rested in tents pitched along the shoreline. Separately, a group of 5 students tended to a bonfire, lingering in the vicinity. Their vigilance was warranted. They took turns keeping watch, wary of potential nocturnal ambushes. Of course, this was one of the safest spots in the kingdom, so the likelihood of an ambush was slim. Thus, it was purely a training exercise, a task assigned by the academy as a fundamental aspect of field work. Hence, the morale of the students was low. Some yawned, others dozed off. While a few engaged in idle chatter, a sense of urgency was conspicuously absent in the air. Observing these students, Fulin harbored no particular discomfort under these circumstances. It's understandable, she thought sympathetically. One day, they would need to be vigilant. A single lapse in attention could be fatal. But that day was not today. For now, they should focus on growing steadily in preparation for that moment. Ideally, Fulin hoped that moment would remain distant. Yet, it wasn't as distant as she had hoped. Gazing silently at the lake shimmering under the moonlight, Fulin noticed a disturbance. The calm surface of the lake began to ripple, the ripples gradually intensifying. What is that? Fulin squinted her eyes, trying to discern the cause. Then, the surface of the lake split open, revealing a dense shadow emerging. Fulin extended her right hand and exclaimed, "Lighting!" Simultaneously, numerous sources of light appeared above the lake. Illuminated by the light, stood a beautiful woman with the body of a horse. Countless mud dolls trailed behind her. The vanguard had already ascended onto the lake's surface, striding as if it were solid ground. "Teacher, what's that?" The students behind her, noticing the anomaly, became agitated. "I don't know. But treat it as an enemy and prepare yourselves," Fulin shouted. Following that, she instructed the students to contact the main team for water quality assessment and to wake the sleeping students. Once that was done, Fulin turned her attention to the approaching centauress. "Halt! If you do not stop, I will attack. This is different. You called for me, did you not?" The woman didn't stop. "You called her." Answering Fulin's question was one of the students behind her. "Isn't she the water spirit summoned during the day by Miss Nia?" Taken aback by the unexpected revelation, Fulin turned reflexively. "What do you mean?" Well, though wearing an expression of regret, the student resignedly explained everything. "It's about when you weren't around. Miss Nia summoned the water spirit. It seems it ended in failure." Fulin glanced at the approaching woman. Indeed, her body seemed to be made of water. Internally, Fulin clicked her tongue. The spiritual energy of this lake was severely disrupted. If an inexperienced mage were to summon here, who knows what could happen. She should have hammered home the point that none of the students were capable of summoning spirits yet. Despite the dire circumstances, at least they now knew the identity of the enemy. It was likely that the unsuccessful spirit summoning had left residual effects, exacerbating the instability of the already disturbed spirit. "Water spirit, this is not where you belong." "Release spirit." Fulin activated the reverse of spirit summoning, the spell of spirit redemption. "GGHH?" The water spirit shuddered. "But that was all. You dare interfere with me?" As the woman waved her hand, a spear of water materialized and flew towards Fulin's feet. Fulin narrowly avoided it. The water spirit's forces were closing in fast. Commotion erupted behind her. Students, awakened from their tents, voiced their confusion. Fulin yelled, "Enemies! Shoot magic arrows!" Without delay, Fulin uttered the triggering words. Magic arrow. The shot flew straight towards the water spirit, piercing a hole in the horse-like lower body. However, that was all. The punctured hole swiftly closed up as if water were flowing in from the surroundings, sealing shut in an instant. Regenerative ability, but it wasn't in vain. Prompted by her actions, the quick-witted students unleashed a barrage of magic arrows. Many missed their mark, yet several struck the mud dolls. Despite the punctured holes, the mud dolls kept on walking. It seemed they weren't capable of recovery, at least not on their own. Fulin issued instructions to the students. "Target the mud dolls. Keep firing magic arrows while retreating. Under no circumstances should you get close." Having said that, Fulin returned her gaze to the rampaging spirit before her. Although she had advised others to step back, Fulin herself had no intention of doing so. This water spirit was too dangerous. She couldn't risk letting the students face it alone. As the mud dolls slipped past her, they advanced further toward the students. "Interfere and you'll perish, human. Don't underestimate me. Despite appearances, I'm quite the skilled mage, you know." And then it happened. Countless red flashes exploded on the left side of the water spirit's body. Unable to withstand the overwhelming force, the water spirit staggered heavily to the right. "I'll lend a hand, teacher." Brain Kun, appearing there was, Brain Milches, the top of his class, hailed as the genius of the next generation. "No, you shouldn't. You're a student too." "Join the others and step back. Don't push yourself." "That water spirit, it's not ordinary. nor is it strength. It's dangerous to face it alone. To Brain's precise analysis, Fallen couldn't immediately counter. His assessment was correct. Remarkably so, for a new student of the academy. This child would undoubtedly be an asset. But, I'd be glad to have your help. However, you're the heir of the Marquis family and a hope of the academy. No, the kingdom. If I let such a child get injured here, I'll surely lose my job as a teacher. Fallen joked lightly. However, without easing his expression, Brain responded, don't worry, I won't die. I can't afford to die in a place like this. I shouldn't be someone who can just die. With the rise in Brain's voice, Fallen felt the surge of magic within him. Tragic Milch's family. To bear such a past yet still choose to fight. He wouldn't be daunted by a trial of this magnitude. Fallen sighed. Understood, but if I tell you to run, you run. Got it? Yes. Understood. Brain continued, almost matter-of-factly. Although that won't happen. Volume 02 Chapter 07, The Hero of My Magic Arrow. Ouch. Meissnier fell dramatically. Retreating while shooting magic arrows. Meissnier, eager to escape rather than engage in such a battle, hurriedly attempted to flee and ended up falling spectacularly in her haste. Oh, Meissnier-sama. Are you injured? Attendant Saenbi hurriedly rushed back to Meissnier. I am fine. Ouch. As Meissnier tried to get up, she felt a sharp pain in her leg and collapsed again. It seemed she had twisted her ankle. Attendant Saenbi tried to carry Meissnier away, but they couldn't pick up enough speed. Mud dolls kept emerging from the lake, closing in on them. Damn. Magic arrows. Meissnier turned round and fired a magic arrow, piercing the head of an approaching mud doll. Without its head, the mud doll couldn't maintain its form and collapsed into a clump of mud on the ground. However, such limited destructive power couldn't stop the swarm of mud dolls. They closed in one after another. Magic arrow, magic arrow, magic arrow. The attendants also desperately used magic, but their efforts were in vain. Paralyzed with fear, the attendants carrying Meissnier stumbled and fell. Meissnier, face planted on the ground, seethed with rage. What are you doing, you slackers? Hurry up. It's impossible. We can't flee while carrying someone. With that retort, the attendants shouted, Meissnier-sama, forgive us, and abandon Meissnier, fleeing. Hey, you two. Meissnier didn't have time to throw hateful glares at their backs. The silent mud dolls were closing in. They reached out their muddy hands towards Meissnier. Don't touch me with your filthy hands. Magic arrow. She managed to defeat one, but it was futile. Hands kept reaching out, smearing Meissnier's fair skin with mud. Unable to bear it any longer, Meissnier screamed. No! Help me! Somebody, help! Alberto-san! Wake up! Alberto-san! I was jolted back to reality by a sudden voice and vibration while in deep sleep. Huh! What? Recognizing the voice, I opened my eyes. It was Laura. I should have been sleeping in the tent, but something seemed off. Laura, you seem flustered. What's happened? Enemies. Enemies are here. Enemies? Yes, the water spirits from earlier attacked, and their mud doll minions. Professor Fullen is fighting them right now. Fullen? It didn't seem like a joke. I got up. Is it dangerous? Yes, the students are evacuating while fighting. Professor Fullen stayed behind to support them. Laura grabbed my hand. Alberto-san, let's go help Professor Fullen now. Of course. Abandoning Fullen wasn't an option. I desired to help as well, but I couldn't answer immediately. Fullen is a far superior mage than I am. Even if a low-level mage like me were to assist, it wasn't fear that made me hesitate. I was considering the vast difference in our abilities. If Fullen struggled against an opponent, my assistance would only burden him further. It would be better not to go if I'd just be a hindrance. Taken aback by my words, Laura looked bewildered. Then, with a determined tone, what are you saying? Alberto-san, you're amazing, she exclaimed loudly. A heavy feeling settled in my chest. Laura was mistaken. I was a failed mage from 10 years ago. In a world where one's worth was determined by the number of useful spells they possessed, being able to use only one spell made me a failure. Laura's expectations were heartwarming, but to dispel the illusion, I had to reveal the truth. Roland. Yes? Listen up. There's something I haven't told you yet. It's a bit embarrassing. What is it? Well, you see, I can only use the magic arrow. What? In this world, a magician's rank is determined by the number of spells they can wield. I, however, can only use one. And so, I continued, I'm a magician with a value of 1 in 1,000. That's who I am." With a surprised expression, Roland shouted louder than before. "So what, huh? I've known for a while that Albert has a limited number of spells, but that doesn't make Albert any less amazing." "It's fine. If you've mastered just one thing, that's enough. Be proud of it. You possess something unique that no one else can replicate." With heightened emotions, Roland continued to speak fervently. "You've saved me countless times with that magic arrow. When I was about to be late for the exam, when we were almost wiped out by the Goblin Lord." Tears welled up in Roland's eyes as she continued to speak. "That kindness and strength are what define you, Albert. More than a legendary magician who can wield 1,000 spells, more than a genius who can use 700 spells, I believe in you as a hero more than anyone else." She grabbed my hand and lowered her head. "You're my friend. I believe in you. I respect you more than anyone else, more than anything." And finally, she said, "So don't call yourself worthless." I felt like I was standing in the midst of a storm. I felt one of the burdens in my heart being lifted. "I see. At least Roland believes in me, and she's asking for my help." "Roland?" "Yes? Do you think I can save Furon?" "Of course, because it's you, Albert." "Got it. I still lack confidence in myself. I can't fully believe in myself. I think I'm worthless. Yet the girl in front of me believes in me." "That's reason enough for Roland, who believes in me as a hero." And I said, "I will become a hero." As I uttered those words, Roland's face lit up. "Albert." That's when it happened. Someone tore through the tent. Dirty hands ripped through the thin fabric. A mud doll forced its way in through the entrance. "What's this?" "These are the enemies." "I see. Then there's no need to hold back." I reached out my hand and, as usual, calmly spoke the words "Magic Arrow." With a thunderous roar, the mud dolls were blown away. Volume 02 Chapter 08, The Hero of Magic Arrows. After blowing away the mud dolls, Laura and I, thanks to my magic arrows, stepped out of the partially destroyed tent. It wasn't a pleasant sight. Mud dolls were crawling everywhere, chasing the students. The students were desperately shooting magic arrows while running for their lives. And by the shore of the lake, there were 2 humans battling a daytime water spirit. Probably Hulin and, who else? Alberto-san. Laura's voice. She pointed towards about 10 mud dolls. "Are they frozen?" "Well, that's just perfect." "Magic arrows." With my command dash, the group of mud dolls shattered into pieces. "Incredible." Laura beside me gasped. "It's not that big of a deal. Come on. Let's go help Hulin." I headed towards the shore where Hulin was, blowing away the mud dolls along the way. But then it happened. "Help! Somebody help!" A woman's voice. Heading toward the voice, I saw a female student pinned down by mud dolls. "She's an easy target since she's down." I cast a spell to avoid hitting the female student. Magic arrows. Like a cannon exploding, the upper bodies of the mud dolls vanished. Mud dolls fell apart. "Hey, are you all right?" As I peered closer, there was Meissner, half in tears, lying there. "This girl." I'll thank you anyway." HMPH. With an ungrateful tone, Meissner tried to get up dash. "Ouch!" and cried out, dropping to one knee. Laura noticed Meissner's distress. "Oh, Meissner-sama, your leg?" It seemed twisted. Her left ankle was swollen painfully. "I'll help you." Approaching her, Laura was pushed away by Meissner. "Stay away. Don't touch me, cursed descendant of a cursed village. Don't you dare touch this noble me." Then, she looked at me. "You'll do." "You're a commoner but I'll tolerate it. Take me to safety." Let me make it clear, I'm not one for violence, and I rarely get angry. But this time, I couldn't help it. She was trampling on Laura's kindness. "Hey," I said, and slapped Meissner's cheek. Eek! With a pitiful sound, Meissner fell to the ground. "Alberto-san, that's not good." "Doing that?" "No, Laura. This is the only way she'll understand." Looking down at the fallen Meissner, I unleashed my fury. "How many times will you hurt Laura's feelings?" Insulting her persistently for trivial matters. Yet, even in such a situation, she tried to help you by advising against summoning spirits. How dare you? I was truly enraged, so I spat out more words. With a condemning glare, Meissner looked at me. "Why you, to continuously kick down someone as gentle as Laura? How could you? Apologize. Until you apologize to Laura, I won't lend you a hand." "Using verbal violence is your domain. Can't you see that?" Tears streamed down Meissner's eyes. Then, with a whisper, she said, "I am sorry. It's okay. I'm not bothered by it, Miss Nia-sama, Laura replied, offering Miss Nia her shoulder. Miss Nia trembled slightly but yielded without resistance. Albert-san, I'll take Miss Nia-sama to a safe place. Understood. I'll deal with these mud dolls. Don't worry about pursuit. I parted ways with Laura and headed towards the shore. At the shore, Fallen and, was that Brain? The top student of the year were teaming up against a water spirit. Fire against water. The two were employing fire magic to battle the water spirit, but its regenerative abilities were swift, and it hadn't suffered any fatal wounds yet. Fallen, I called out, and Fallen turned around. Albert-kun. Why are you here? Because Laura asked me to. I came to help. It's dangerous. Quickly, run away. I don't intend to run. You don't understand. This isn't an ordinary water spirit. That dark core in its chest. That's the source of its power. We can't defeat it unless we destroy that, but its chest has particularly thick defenses. A sharp analysis, human, but it's futile. Your power can't penetrate my defense. Magic arrow. With a thud, the upper half of the water spirit vanished. Wah! Fallen and Brain were left speechless. The lower half of the water spirit, its horse part, buckled at the knees. Its body dissolved, turning into water, and returned to the lake. The black core in its chest rolled to the shallows. Leaving that black core unattended might not be wise. I approached the core and extended my right hand. Magic arrow, magic arrow, magic arrow, magic arrow, magic arrow. With my shots, the black core shattered into smithereens. As the magical power from the water spirit was severed, the mud dolls wobbled and collapsed to the ground. It seemed like it was over. Fallen, it's done. Huh, that easily? Fallen muttered in disbelief. Did you say magic arrow just now? No, that couldn't. The top student from the adjacent year, with an incredulous expression, pressed their temple. For some reason, the two seemed unsettled, but it didn't matter to me. I was satisfied because I kept the promise with the only girl who believed in me. Because I could fulfill her wish. Even though I'm like this, did I manage to be somewhat useful? Achieving something feels good. It felt like my once flattened, lifeless heart had expanded just a bit. That's surely thanks to Laura. I quietly directed my gaze towards where she was, smiling softly. Thank you for giving me courage. Volume 02 Chapter 09, Endings and Tomorrows. In the early hours, I found myself once again standing before the lake. There was nobody around the lake. Only the wreckage of the tents lay scattered, a testament to the chaos that had unfolded. Thankfully, there were no casualties, just a few minor injuries easily healed with restorative magic. However, it was clear we couldn't stay here any longer. We had to hastily seek shelter in the nearby town. Having woken up early, I made my way to the lake shore alone. The tents the students had used were trampled, with mud clumps that might have been makeshift mud dolls strewn about, but the lake itself remained unchanged. It stood there quietly, as serene as it had for perhaps over a millennium, unaffected by yesterday's commotion. Or so it seemed, except for one thing. The water of the lake remained as dark and stagnant as ever. Yes, that's it. There was something I wanted to try here. Last night, I had defeated the frenzied water spirit. At that moment, my magic arrow pierced through the black core within the spirit's chest. That sensation, the feeling of purging impurities from the water. Could that sensation be applied to purify water? Just as my shift in perspective prompted a breakthrough in my dispel magic through my magic arrow? Thinking about it made me unable to stay calm any longer. I jumped out of my sleepless bed and made my way here. Extending my right hand, I uttered the trigger words. Magic arrow. A white arrow shot from my hand, hitting the surface of the lake and creating ripples. But that was all. The disturbed surface of the lake remained dark and stagnant. I sighed, feeling my body slump in disappointment. However, I didn't let myself entertain thoughts of giving up after just one failure. Magic arrow, magic arrow, magic arrow, magic arrow, magic arrow. One after another, white arrows struck the lake's surface, yet none of them changed the water's color. Still, I persisted. Magic arrow, magic arrow, magic arrow. Failure and setbacks were something I had experienced aplenty 10 years ago. I had long known my own worthlessness. But I had decided to move forward. I had decided to open that door again after 10 years. And that sight, the miraculous sight of my magic arrow achieving dispel magic, it was still etched in my mind, giving me strength. Miracles do happen. Efforts do not go to waste. I knew that. Magic arrow. How many times had I repeated it by now? Suddenly, it happened. Around the points where the arrows landed, the water surface suddenly turned transparent. But in an instant, it was engulfed by the surrounding darkness, returning to its original state. I definitely saw it, but did I really see it? A slight unease crept in. Then, there was no choice but to try again. The magic arrow. I released the magic arrow, tracing the surface of the water with precision. Like a fish darting across the lake's surface, the magic arrow streaked through, as if to mark its path. The white arrow left behind a transparent trail on the purified water, forming a single clear path on the lake's surface. Ooh! An involuntary exclamation escaped my lips. I did it. Following the dispel magic, I had now achieved purification with a magic arrow. Woo! I roared, carried away by my emotions. There is still a long road ahead for me. There is still so much potential within me. As if to signify my future, a long road pierced through the lake's surface. Gleaming in the sunlight, night fell, casting only moonlight upon the world. In the dim courtyard of the palace, the Dark Prince, Lugard, practiced his swordplay alone. Once hailed as a promising mage knight in the kingdom, his swordsmanship was formidable to behold. Though the practice was intense, Lugard paused, casting his gaze into the enveloping darkness. Do you require something? He. As vigilant as ever. Your darkness. Emerging from the shadows was a diminutive old man cloaked in robes, his face obscured by a deep hood. Your darkness. The forging of the dark sword is complete. Here. With a snap of his fingers, a sword materialized before Lugard. This is it? Without hesitation, Lugard discarded his previous sword to the ground and gripped the new one, drawing it forth. From its ebony blade emanated a menacing aura. The dark sword, Dainsleif, a sword once wielded by the ancient Dark King. Lugard swung Dainsleif through the air several times. Just by wielding it, he could feel its monstrous power. Merely holding it made his arms tremble. It's formidable. The sword he had been practicing with moments ago was no ordinary blade. It was a masterwork that only renowned swordsmen could handle, but compared to the dark sword Dainsleif, it was nothing but a trinket. Indeed, a weapon fit for a king with the power to conquer the world. It holds the appropriate status. The old man chuckled with satisfaction before continuing. It's a pleasure to see you pleased, Your Highness. We've spent half a year training at Lake Vihanu. Lugard had heard this tale before. Dainsleif had been decayed, requiring vast amounts of water for its revival, along with a large space to discard the immense black miasma generated during the ritual. Lake Vihanu had been chosen for this purpose. At first, we managed to deceive the lad from Carlisle quite skillfully. However, it's difficult to keep fooling him. We were on edge when a team from the Royal Academy of Magic arrived to investigate. He laughed lightly, continuing. But, well, we had the upper hand in the end. It's a fine sword. Thank you. Lugard sheathed Dainsleif. You're too kind. We spare no effort for our long-awaited goal. All our hardships will be rewarded when our soul wish is fulfilled. We rely on you, your darkness. And finally, the old man concluded, for the return of the Dark Era. Lugard nodded. Having betrayed his country and wielding the dark sword, there was no turning back for him. Nor did he intend to. Thus, the only words that escaped his lips were these: for the return of the Dark Era. Volume 02 Chapter 09. Welcome back, Albert. Including Albert in the water quality inspection, your intuition hit the mark, Carlisle. Philbus addressed Carlisle from the confines of the royal chambers. The court magician responded with a brief, knowing smile. To be honest, I never expected something like this to happen, Carlisle admitted. It was indeed Carlisle who had insisted on sending Albert, a struggling student, on the water quality inspection, just as Philbus had predicted. Sensing the lurking presence of darkness, Carlisle calculated that Albert wouldn't be at a loss, and so, he included him. However, without that whim, the consequences for the students might have been dire. It seems Albert made quite the impression, doesn't it? Philbus inquired. Oh yes, he's become quite the talk of the school, Carlisle replied. I'd love to hear the tale of his heroics, Philbus added. I believe the Academy has been informed, Carlisle remarked. We can't rely on the Academy's embellished reports to save face. I value your candid opinion on all matters, Philbus insisted. Very well. Carlyle sighed. Philbus continued, Albert vanquished the deranged water spirit. Initially weakened by the efforts of instructors Hulin and Brain, Albert's intervention was decisive, according to their reports. Consistent with the reports, Carlyle nodded. Yet, crucial details are missing. How did Albert defeat the water spirit with a single strike? Philbus questioned. Carlyle raised both hands. As you might guess, it was a magic arrow. A magic arrow, you say? Carlyle chuckled. Some secrets are better left undisclosed, he said. Forgive me, but even we from the Academy find it hard to believe. Simply dismissing it as a magic arrow. However, both Hulin and Brain confirmed that Albert indeed unleashed it. Carlyle explained. Carlyle contemplated silently. This was no ordinary magic arrow. Hence, the Academy couldn't report it. They enclosed what they couldn't comprehend in vague language and context. Albert himself claims it was a magic arrow. Yet the Academy remains skeptical. They suspect a misunderstanding. Perhaps another spell was cast? Carlyle elaborated. Carlyle sympathized with the stubbornness of the Academy. Those earnestly studying magic would find this event perplexing. It defied all logic. Furthermore, this wasn't just any frenzied spirit. It was an augmented form empowered by darkness, Carlyle added. To think it was defeated with a mere magic arrow. Carlyle retrieved a small vial from the drawer and placed it on the desk. The vial contained a dark liquid, akin to ink infused with the essence of darkness. It was brought back by the investigation team from Lake Vicanu. This is heavily tainted water, Carlyle remarked. With such contamination, it was no wonder the spirits became deranged. Philbus inspected the vial with keen interest. To think they polluted the colossal Lake Vicanu to such an extent. What were they up to, I wonder? Yet, it wouldn't be surprising if some legendary force were involved, Carlyle speculated, half-jokingly. However, Carlyle didn't find it amusing. The extent of contamination was alarming. There had to be more to it than met the eye. Carlyle clicked his tongue in frustration. To overlook such a thing for half a year, what kind of court magician was he? But it wasn't entirely his fault. The machinations of the dark forces were multiplying throughout the kingdom, known only to a select few, including Carlyle. With such limited resources, there were bound to be oversights. Excuses, really. Carlyle shook his head. He couldn't handle the situation alone. Without intervention, the kingdom would inevitably plunge into chaos. They needed a wild card to turn the tide. Albert, you might just have to become the hero this country needs, Carlyle thought, picturing the enigmatic young man's face, and smiled faintly. A week had passed since the return of the Water Quality Survey team. In the Grand Hall of the Royal Academy, all students had gathered. The purpose of this assembly was to commend those students who had achieved success in the incident involving the Water Quality Survey team. Among these students was, "Let's go, Albert," spoke Furin nervously beside me. Yes. With a bang, the double doors in front of us swung open. The doors faced the front of the hall, positioning us to face the rows of students gathered within. As the students facing us turned their attention towards me, every gaze seemed to inquire, "Who is he?" Furin began to walk ahead of me with jittery movements. I followed in her footsteps. Standing ahead was the elderly headmaster. As Furin and I came to a halt, the headmaster proceeded to read from the certificate he held in his hand. "Albert, in the perilous circumstances faced by the Water Quality Survey team, you demonstrated exceptional abilities, rescuing your fellow students from adversity. It was a situation where loss of life would not have been unexpected, but thanks to your presence, the worst of misfortunes was averted. In recognition of your courage and talent, I present you with this certificate." Stepping forward, I accepted the certificate offered by the headmaster. It was a strange feeling. 10 years ago, I had achieved nothing. Yet here I stood, receiving recognition from the headmaster in front of the entire school. I hadn't changed significantly as a person. So what had changed? "Thank you." Returning to Furin after receiving the certificate, the headmaster continued his address. "Furthermore, in acknowledgement of Albert's prowess, we hereby bestow upon him the Iron School badge." The students, who had been quiet until then, erupted into murmurs of amazement. This announcement must have been quite shocking. The Iron School badge, this was a requirement for promotion to the 3rd year, and here I was, skipping past the Stone School badge needed for promotion to the 2nd year. From behind the headmaster, A teacher walked forward carrying a box containing the badges. Approaching the teacher, Fiorin stepped forward. Despite the teacher's puzzled expression, she confidently said, "Leave it to me," and accepted the badge. Turning back to me, Fiorin smiled dryly and whispered softly, "Sorry for being intrusive, but I just had to do it." Reaching for my uniform collar, she gently affixed the badge. In the midst of this, Fiorin sniffled softly, her nose slightly red. Her hand trembled slightly. In a voice barely above a whisper, she spoke to me. Truly. Congratulations, Albert. Your efforts have paid off. 10 years ago, it ended in sorrow. But this badge you've finally grasped. It's not a futile effort. Not the date 10 years ago. Not the 10 years that followed. They weren't in vain. You've done it this time. Releasing my collar, the iron school badge gleamed dully in my hand. It wasn't flashy, but to me, it sparkled brightly. I had finally obtained it. Just as Fiorin said, the badge that eluded me 10 years ago. With a gentle wipe of her eyes, Fiorin softly said one last thing. "Welcome back, Albert."